things, and then we'll start. Okay, so we'll call to order the Monday, December 4th, Committee of the Whole Women Operations meeting at the Lewisburg Community Center. Lots of staff in place tonight, full complement of staff. We're short of two councillors, Deputy Mayor Steve Bilboff sends his regrets, and Councillor Chris Ford is with us via electronic participation. Everybody else is present. Okay, so on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda or additions?
None here.
Good. Right, so then I need somebody to move the agenda.
I'll move it.
Councillor Martel and seconded by Councillor Snail. All in favor? Okay, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the conflict of interest of the general nature thereof. Does anyone have interest to declare?
None by me.
Okay, then we're moving on to the previous minutes. Does anyone have any business arising from those minutes? Okay, so then we're on to delegations and presentations. And the first delegation is the Optimist Club, and it's the discussion or the presentation on the outdoor rink recreation pad. For letter support. So Brian Purcell, welcome, Brian. Can you hear me, Brian?
Now, yeah, you go ahead.
Oh, you're good to go.
Okay. So, I've sent some information over to the township office. So I think a lot of people are aware that we've been raising money at the Optimist Club, and the hopes is to get a concrete pad laid down so that we can have our outdoor rink in the winter time. But plan is to have it as a 4-season recreation area in the Spencerville area, so that we can have our outdoor rink in the off season. We'll be able to have ball hockey and basketball and pickleball and anything that anybody would want to use it for. And so we're looking at putting it on Fairboard property beside the exhibit buildings and across the parking lot from the arena in Spencerville. So we've had 2 different fundraisers, and we've raised I think we've got about $57,000. And the cost is going to be more than that. We're still looking at doing a fundraiser in the new year, but we're looking to go for grants. I've talked to Steve Clark, and he mentioned that the Trillium grant is probably the main program we would go for. We've met with the Fair Board, and we have their full support to try and do that and try and get our project complete on their property. And so basically just coming to the township at this point to hopefully get some written support from the township for the Optimist Club and our project going forward, so that we can use that in the grant process to try and secure larger funds. We want to get the pad poured, and we're looking at trying to maybe go similar to what Maynard has done in Augusta, where we could maybe get the pipes in the ground to eventually have a condenser and have artificial ice going forward. And last year was a bad year for the outdoor rink. I understand this year may be as well. So that's basically what we're looking for, is just a letter of support from the township that we would be able to use when we're trying to secure a grant, either through Trillium or federally, if that's possible as well.
Thanks, Brian. I think folks might have some questions for you from here in committee. We'll try to speak loud enough so that you can hear us. If you can't, just let us know if you can't hear us, okay?
Potter that. Yeah, if you got a question, go ahead.
I see Chris is waving his hand. Chris, do you want to go first? Or you
No, I didn't know I was waving my hand, but that's okay. No, I mean, I've had some good discussions with Brian and others on this on this pad, and I think it's exciting to see we can help to bring something more into the Spencerville area, and you know, I'm excited about it, like I said, and I'm supporting of it for sure. I just, you know, I would like to know what we can do to help, and you know, hopefully there's enough grants with the Trillium grants to help us get us over the amount there. And but I'm not sure what we can do as far as helping to push that. But I'm assuming that's a staff question, and maybe a letter from the mayor or something like that might be able to help. I'm not sure, but
Okay, thanks, Chris. Karen?
No questions at all.
Councilor? No, great initiative.
I just have one question for you. I'm just wondering, how big are you gonna make this pad? I'm just curious.
The size, we're looking at a 60 by 100 foot pad. Right now, our rink boards that we use now, we're about 84 by 48, I believe. And that's just on the ball diamond that we do it now. So we're looking at just to make sure it's big enough, and that would sort of include size as well if we wanted to have roughly like a full size basketball court or something like that as well.
Thank you.
My question, ran on your diagram, you submitted, you got like an L shape, or you got your 60 by 100, and then another off to the side there. What was that supposed to be for?
Sorry, I didn't catch all that.
The diagram you we have on our tablet there showing your 60 by 100, and then an L shape off to the side sketch. Kansas. Was that for an extension of it sometime, or?
I think
Chris, did you catch all that? You can relay it?
I think I can. I think it's two different layouts. The same length, so it's two different options. Yeah, two different options. East, west, north, east, west, north. Yeah.
yeah, it's either going to go east, west, or north, south, basically. Yeah, that's what it looks
yeah.
like. Yeah.
So we've got two options right now from the ground that's there. We did have I think about 9 test holes dug. And right now from Jermaine Couture and Leonard Belanger, they determined, and I think Gary Moulton, who's got the excavation experience, looking at maybe going east-west, but that's, I mean, it's an option going either way. If it's east-west, we'll probably have to put netting up on the one end that faces Ryan Street. But again, depending on the funding we've got, if we've got the funding to go whichever way we please, that would be great too. So.
You can really Google when you can't hear me. Do you have an estimated cost of the project?
The full total cost, Brian?
We don't, I haven't been over to the township office yet in Augusta. I just want to talk to them. Their project was a lot higher because they've got a lot more there. And so I have to get an idea from them, and also the company. We're trying to get quotes from 4 local smaller contractors, especially when we're looking at doing the cement pad. And but we want to sort of make sure we've got the quotes as well, that make sure they're able to do the tubing if that's what we have the money for. If not, then we would have to sort of look at like a rink company that I was going to be in touch with Mike Spencer sometime to get a contact that way too, to get what the full amount. We're thinking over 100,000 is probably what we're looking at for cost, and it may be maybe quite a bit more than that.
I'll just, this is pretty easy when Brian is support on my behalf. I'll be, certainly quite willing to, put my support behind it. I get the sense that all members of council want to see more things happening in Spencerville, and having, you know, a good partner like the Optimist Club, I think, will go a long way. So, you know, I'm very interested in what, you know, the ultimate long, like the end design would be. I know the first thing that I wrote down when I read it was, and you said pipes for cooling. I was thinking, is there the potential for pipes for a splash pad for the summer too? So, just trying to dream bigger. But unless anybody else has any further questions, I don't have much else. So.
Yeah, sorry, Dory, we did talk about that a little bit with at our meeting with the Fair Board. That the idea of a splash pad has come up as well. Doesn't fit on the pad we want to use because of wanting to freeze it in the winter time. It may not be that site there would have to be brought up later, I guess, for something like that to make sure that there's room on those grounds, but definitely that'd be a nice addition in the village of Spencerville.
Staff had wanted to make a comment, I think, Brian, so.
Just one additional question. Maybe two, but, with where the location is, ownership sort of the asset. And then with respect to operation maintenance on the go forward, I guess there been any consideration with respect to that.
Brian, did you hear that?
No.
So the question from the CAO was, who would be the owner of it once completed? And second question, or like the add-on to that, is who would be responsible for the continued operation and maintenance?
So, because it's on Fair Board property, well, our best guess is they would own it. And we have full use of it. They would have full use of it when it's an event, like say the fair, unless it's something we were running on it. And maintenance and everything as well, that especially, I guess we're even saying through the summertime and wintertime, it would be the Optimist Club's probably our maintenance project, because if we're using it so that people can come and play basketball and ball hockey and things like that, we would be responsible for emptying garbage cans and cleaning up and things like that as well. So right now with the ball diamond that we do use the rink for, typically there's some garbage cans there that are left over from the ball season, and we're there all the time shoveling and flooding. So we do keep that area clean. When the spring comes and we tear our boards down, we usually have rakes with us as well, and we do clean up and keep that area clean as well.
And did you want to? So I'll just ask the CAO. So with one like this, when the outdoor rink goes on all field, and there's obviously a partnership there. Who secures the insurance? Like, from a liability standpoint.
Sorry, did you?
No, I'm just to staff, Brian.
So with that, rink being on township property, it would fall under our general fiscal insurance.
So it would be our liability insurance. Okay, we were just talking about insurance, Brian. And you would know. You can't have a thing. You can see my mouth. Okay, so nothing further. Anyone? Is there more from staff?
That was just an initial one. I'm sure I'll have some more.
You'll have some more. Yeah. Okay, thanks for the delegation, Ryan. There's certainly a lot of support here on council for it. I know that staff wants to follow up, and they'll have several questions and things to discuss with you further. Okay.
Okay, I think I got all that.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thanks everyone.
Okay, so moving on to 5B, which is dual power. electric vehicle charging stations, and we have Himanshu Sudan, CEO, and Lara Coombs, who is a senior advisor. Welcome, Himanshu and Lara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the councillor and the administrative staff. I'm not sure how to address you, sir. Should I call you your worship, or should I just go along with Mr. Mayor? So, oh, I don't know if I'm frozen, but if I'm still available, I would like to just maybe talk a few minutes about the presentation. Can you all still hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear, Tori, or Mr. Mayor, can you hear? Weird.
Councillor Ward, I can definitely hear you.
I think they're frozen.
I think they're frozen, yeah. It's a very sadly recurring theme with, not Toronto or Ottawa kind of internet, for instance. Yeah, they've left. Look at that, they're gone now.
Uh-oh. I guess
You're the host, Himanshu.
Is it something? Is it something I said, Councillor?
Maybe. It's possible.
I don't think you like my. I don't think you like your worship joke.
No, I mean, well, he's got a good personality. I'm sure he didn't mind that at all. So I'm just texting him.
Councillor, did you happen to see the deck that we sent?
I did. Yeah, we have it it's in the agenda as well. So when you send it to us, we get into our agenda. It also becomes public record. So yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Right. Nope. Oh, there they are. There they are.
We're back.
Okay.
We had a little meeting without you. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I seem to have had an internet crash there. So I was just saying that you can refer to me by my first name, which is Tori, and I'm fine with that. So,
I was afraid I said something wrong, and apologize if I did, that you basically just shut us out, but glad we're back. I'm gonna see if I can just share my screen and kind of go through a couple of things, just make it more into an informal presentation rather than kind of just doing a lot. So Mr. Mayor and the council, basically what we're requesting is the ability to put level 3 EV chargers at no cost to the township at these following locations. And I think these were discussed with some of the staff members. So there's potentially 5 locations that has been brought forward by the township as potential. And these 5, I think our interest with Edwards Cardinal Township is that it's very strategically located at the 416 and 401 corridor. So it makes perfect sense for any commuters that are passing through, as well as local community members to partake or utilize in these EV fast charging chargers. These chargers are being installed as part of an MTO program, Ministry of Transportation Ontario program, wherein they are subsidizing 50% of the cost of putting these stations, but these are being installed at no cost to the township. We will own the systems, we will operate the systems, maintain the systems, and basically our request is to provide us with the parking spots where these systems could be located. And I think as part of this requirement or completing the client package is to sign an MOU, which has been attached to this deck, so that we can submit this application to the government of Ontario to seek funding from them in order to install these systems. Just as a little bit of an overview of Joule, we have systems deployed across North America, all the way from Florida to Alaska. We're headquartered in Toronto, Ontario, but we're working very closely with different organizations, customers and site hosts. And not only are we deploying our stations with the Ontario government and the Canadian federal government through Natural Resources Canada, but we're also deploying our systems as part of the US National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which is the NEVI program. So we've kind of got quite a few of these deployed at Loblaws, Metro, Sobeys, and we're also working with various utilities and deploying them. And there is a short video that if you get a chance, I'd encourage you to see it. But what I wanted to do, because sometimes a live demo is worth a lot more, just to explain to you how our system works and is kind of unique, is the following. Can the council see my screen? So these are the different locations at which we are installed in. And I'm going to take one of the locations in Toronto at Bayview Village. This is a Loblaws site. So this is typically how a station looks. This is a live demonstration of that particular site. We are taking about 103 kW of power. It goes into our charge hub. And right now you can see live 2 cars are charging. One car is charging at 105 kW. The other car is plugged in at 14, 15 kW. And you can see we're connected to almost 600 to 800 kilowatts of these J chargers out there. So this battery is providing the power to these charging stations. So our systems composes of a battery and these charging stations that are connected to it. And when required, we're able to flow power into the facility, in this particular case, that Loblaws store or any facility that we put it in, or into those charging stations. And in case of an outage, where actually the battery can flow power into that particular facility as a backup power, or it continues to charge cars, as you can see them being deployed. So our system is a little bit unique system. It's not just a typical level 3 charger. It's a battery that's connected to these chargers that basically takes whatever is available power and flows the power into the facility or into the Joule station. In your case, in the case of the council, we're not expecting the backup power to be provided to the facility. In this particular case, at this point in time, our intention is just to take power and give it to the cars as needed. However, I would like the council and mayor to be aware that, as I showed in the case of those Loblaws deployments or Metro deployments, we do have the ability to flow power and provide backup power in case of outage or anything like that. And that's the uniqueness of what we are deploying. And that's the reason why we've been so successful. Just as a background, all our employees are manufacturing is all done in Ontario, in Toronto at our factory. We have about 60 to 80 employees in that facility. So it's good news is that the technology is Canadian, the technology is Ontario, it's investment, so the jobs are creating in Ontario, and it's a good way to kind of create this Ontario technology being deployed in Ontario. Just last bit of it before I open it up to questions, because I know I'm throwing a lot out there. The last bit is that eCamion or Joule is owned by the founders, the employees, and the Canadian government through EDC and BDC, and an external investor from New York. So that's kind of the ownership. So we're proud to be Canadian owned. We're proud to create jobs in Ontario, and with Ontario technology that's developed jointly with us and University of Toronto. And we look forward to deploying these in the township, given your permission, at potentially those 5 locations. So what we're looking for is 5 applications to go into the Ministry of Ontario for us to obtain some subsidies from them and us to deploy these at these 5 locations. So with that, I'm going to shut up and listen to you.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm sure there'll be some questions for you. So I'm going to start on screen so I don't forget you. Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure, I appreciate that. And it's stuff that's right up my alley. My area of interest anyways is EV cars and whatever the next generation after that would be. So there will be a battery you'll be having on site, is that right, Himanshu?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, gotcha. So, and the other thing that I was not sure of, and I don't know if it's a question you've already researched, or maybe staff knows, or maybe it's to be determined, is do we know that the buildings, the 5 places you want, all have sufficient power? I guess coming in, like the input power? Does that have to be changed, or is that adequate for your needs?
So you know what? That is a great question. And I think that what you have just asked is at the crux of what the problem the grid faces. And that's what is unique about us. So just to give you an example of the Canada store. So Bayview was a different example. If you can see here in the Canada store, there's also car charging right now at the Canada store. Our hub is only taking 28 kW of power. So we are able to take almost very little power, in some cases negligible amount of power, and still be able to provide that output out. So our intention is not to upgrade the service initially. If we see all of a sudden 100 cars are coming in and charging on a regular basis, then it makes sense economically for us to kind of go out and increase the service. And that's the uniqueness of using this car battery, or batteries in between, is that we don't have to upgrade the infrastructure. So in the case of Georgetown location, you can see all we are drawing is 3 kW of power, and we're able to give, in this particular case, interestingly, Georgetown is also charging. Somebody's charging at 44. So we are able to take whatever is available at the facility and still provide that power out. What has been happening is that the grid doesn't have the capacity to allow EV charging to happen. You would have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade the grid at each location to be able to charge cars. By doing a unique situation, we've almost created a water tank. Instead of water tank, it's electron tanks that basically trickle charges and is able to provide the power out as needed. And that's kind of is unique about us, not requiring upgrades to the existing infrastructure to be able to do that.
Okay, I like the electron tank. That's actually a great metaphor for that. So I appreciate that. And I guess if there was that requirement, we would have to figure out the cost of that as well. But I think that doesn't sound like it's a problem, so that's good with me. The next question I had is so you're looking for us to say yes, there'll be a contract. I'm assuming we'd figure out. And how long is the duration of that contract? Is this one of these 20-year deals, or is this depends on our negotiations, or how does that work?
I think what the ministry would like us to do is have a minimum. I believe Lara's pointing at 5 fingers, so I'm assuming it's a minimum of 5 years. and so I think that's a requirement of the government funding. Like, they don't want to give funding for a particular location, and then they don't want us to get the funding and then move it to Toronto. They would like it to be installed in the location. This particular program is for those municipalities whose population is less than 170 or 175,000. So if I show you the usage at Bayview is much higher. So the intention of the subsidy is that the charging station infrastructure is laid out at locations where the population is not as dense, but yet still get the benefit of EV charging. So the duration is 5 years. That's the requirement by the province.
Okay, thank you. And then just the last question I have, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to sound, I guess there's no wrong answer. I'll say it like that. So other than the fact that we don't have to put any of our own money up front, is there any other benefits for the township at this point on this program?
I think we're also committed as part of our MOU, which is attached to the presentation, which is a format that the province again requires. I think we're committed to providing a monthly charge of $100 per for the parking spot that we're going to be using to putting up our system in. So I think that's part of So I think the benefit in our view of our technology are threefold. Number one, the ability to deploy charging stations where you typically would not be able to deploy, because you would have to spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of $1,000s to get the power in. The second is, even if you take the power, it doesn't increase your demand charges or anything like that. So it doesn't upset or because any power requirements. And the third thing is, without technology, if needed, we have the ability to flow power and provide some backup as well.
Okay,
that's what Loblaws is taking from us.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, sorry. My apologies.
Just one question, so in the MOU, it actually said that it's an initial term of not less than 10 years. But 5 or 10 years, what happens after that? Is it renewed or like this? You said you own and are responsible for but now, when it goes into 5 years, what happens after the 5 years?
So, Councillor, our intention is at this point in time is to enter into an MOU. The MOU is not a binding agreement. If that site is selected for funding by the government, we can then enter into a definitive agreement, which would be binding. And at that point in time, we can address some of these matters as to if you would like us to remove it, then we will, obviously from our side, make sure that the site is put back into a position that it is not detrimental to how it was previously, and those items can be addressed as part of the definitive agreement. I think at this point in time, the MOU is more of an expression of interest to say we are okay with this site being applied for funding to the government to deploy, and once that site has been accepted, because we're going to put in those 5 applications, the province may accept 1, 2, or none, or all 5. And so I think if they say, yeah, I think the province also agrees it's a good site, we also then at that point in time we can get into a definitive agreement and address those items.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Just wondering if insurance liability and stuff like that, just putting a charging station and a big battery inside a building, does that affect insurance rates, stuff like that? We all know how safe they are, but still.
That's right. So our intention is that our insurance will cover those. So you can imagine, our as I was explaining on that presentation, is our systems are installed at very urban areas, in some cases in underground parking lots and stuff like that. I think the intention is that our insurance will cover all the costs that relate to any damages that happen because of whatever reason. And I think one of the things we're going to probably do is put bollards all around as protection, because that's what we are doing. And that's basically in a nutshell, our insurance will cover it.
Thank you.
And just before you go, I'm just going to look to staff. Are we good with that? We discussed insurance, or I looked into we have.
Thank you. That's a nice presentation. Karen and Councilor Ward has asked most of the questions I would ask, but what I have is within the 5 years or the 10 years span, whatever you want to say, is there possible that you put more in the area?
No, I'm sorry. Your voice is breaking up a little bit, sir. Could you please repeat that?
Just wondering if within the 5 years, would you be able to put more in the area of township?
So I heard the part at the end of the 5 years, and then I didn't catch that last.
I believe the councillor was asking if during the 5 years, is there any potential for more of them popping up as well? Is there any any chance that in year 2 more could be added potentially? I think that's what you're asking, councillor?
Yes. Yeah. So the answer to that question is absolutely. We have the ability to add more. And I think at that point in time, it becomes more of a business decision, because if we see that there is a particular site that is seeing a lot of traffic, then it's in our best interest, in order to kind of maximize the usage and revenue of that particular site, is to add to those stations. So our intention is absolutely to do so. So just so I showed you kind of like what it looks like on like the screen, which is our software screen, but this is what those J's look like. So as you can see, when you drive up, you basically see just these J's. This is kind of like the screen that shows, how many minutes, what's your current session charge. This is under the park and charge because the Loblaws like everything PC, so they went with the park and charge. But this is kind of like what the charging stations will look like. And at any given point in time, we can add more J's. We call them J's just because they look like J's. And they went with a blue jay, but this would allow us to put more and more of these blue jays as we deem necessary.
Thank you very much.
My question, on the sites that you're looking, where you want to locate them, you mentioned the one was in front was in Walmart parking lot, which is kind of open, but if they're put in other locations like a plant parking lot, are they still deemed that they have to be open to the general public all the time?
I again, sir, if I could just repeat the question with the way I understood it. I think you're mentioning, is this something that could be used only for public charging or for other users as well? Is that correct?
Yeah, if it was installed on private property, is it available to the general public?
Well, I think we have no issues in actually deploying it at private properties as long as it's available to the public. There's a couple of other benefits I wanted to add as well to this. In the presentation, you notice that we are also working with regional transit, like Durham Region Transit, City of Edmonton Transit. So the same battery can provide power to a J to charge buses or cars, but it can also provide power for buses as well. As in the future, as your fleet, your township fleets become electric, your sanitation trucks become electric, your buses become electric, we have the ability to provide the charging not only for the public that is using it, but potentially for your fleets as well. So there is no limitation of deploying it only at township-owned properties. It can be put up at privately owned, as long as there is access to the public of that particular for those charges. And once this infrastructure is built within the township, and my hope is that we are able to get all funding for all of them, we would have a very good dense network, which can then be used for furthering your fleets, or in the future, as and when you determine to electrify your fleet, we could help with that as well.
Staff, do you have anything I'll mention in our here? No? I've got no. I just want to make I have several questions. One thing, of course, that caught my ear was no cost. I understand that it's through the Charge Ontario program, and that you'd be responsible, for the costs. So when you're connecting to electricity at these 5 locations, and you're running from our location or from the location that's indicated, those 5 locations out to the BESS, who's responsible for the installation of that wire, and who does the cost of that go to?
Yeah, so we have 2 choices at that point, Mr. Mayor. We have the ability to either ask and get a connection directly from the grid for that particular location, or we would basically take the power. If there is surplus power available at that facility, we could take power from there. The cost of connecting to your station or to your power source or to the grid is to be borne by Joule, number one. And if in the event that we're taking power from your facility, in that particular case, there will be a meter that would be installed that would measure how many kilowatts that we did, and basically reimburse the township for any power that is done. So at this point in time, what we're seeking is just the permission to install it. Once the funding has been done, we would be responsible for acquiring the power at that particular location, whether the facility has the ability to provide us with, say, at least 30 kilowatts of power, spare power, or we need to go and get our own grid connection and just connect directly to the grid and obtain it. The benefit of having power from the facility is that in the future, whatever pipe comes into us allows us to flow power back into you if you need it. And that's why sometimes in the case of Loblaws, they prefer that we take the power from them, because if a pipe comes in, is the pipe that goes back into it. But we have no issues in just going directly and acquiring the power from the grid to be able to deploy it. But if we take your power, we'll compensate for it by putting up a meter, sub-meter that measures it and compensates.
Yeah, just bear with me for 1 sec. So, I guess that's something that staff could work out in the end if needed. But that would be interesting to see, like, do we have backup battery or backup generator or backup anything in any of those locations? Or, I mean, we don't have power loss a lot, but.
Water is, this facility or
None of these things. So that actually is an interesting.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I was thinking the same thought as you did. It was a good introduction to a topic. And I guess, you know, the advantage obviously in connecting to our buildings directly would be also that it's because it's, if we had a long power outage like we had, one of those ice storms where we were down for, X number of days, into weeks, into a week or whatever else, this battery power could be used to supplant some of that as well, to help keep the building's lights on a little longer and be able to house people if we got into one of those emergency states that we always fear could happen. So
Yeah, I like the idea of the VAS. I think it's
So if you just to show you, like, this is the live site at Georgetown. So you can see there's a car charging. And if I just show you into the energy management and the metering side, you can see how we're metering energy delivered to the charge hub on a daily basis. And if I kind of go through the summer months, which were the really super hot months, where those blue bars are, those blue bars are the days where we pushed power back into the Loblaws store at Georgetown. So what it does is it allows us to manage this flow of electrons. We believe that electric charging is not going to be just your simple gas station model of the future. We believe that electric charging is almost going to be energy management and how best to flow the electrons back and forth. But right now, we're not requesting approval to do all of the fancy stuff. Right now, we're just requesting approval to just put up the EV charging. However, my purpose of sharing this with the council was full disclosure to show that what the system has is much greater capabilities than just EV charging. And my purpose of constantly showing you a live example was that this is a capability that is being used by other customers.
I think, thank you for that answer, Himanshu. I can say here we had 2 VAS farms recently come and talk to us about, creating battery farms in the township. And this is, I think if I read your, or at least when I looked at your website, it looks like it's usually a 1 megawatt per hour battery that would charge for these. Is it?
No, actually, it's a much smaller battery. So our batteries are very modular. So we call those battery modules strings. String 1, string 2. Each string is 220 kilowatt hour. So basically, our intention is to start with 1 string and 2 chargers, or 2 strings and 4 chargers, depending on what we do a little bit more study to figure out what the traffic expected are. And as I mentioned, we can just modularly increase it. I think one of your other members of the council also asked our ability to add on. So these are not big batteries. It's basically a 220 kilowatt hours battery system. Now, I do want to point out something to you, is that the battery may be 220 kilowatt hour battery, but it has a capacity to give out a lot more power out. The battery that you are talking about, that probably someone has approached you and putting up their battery systems, are what are called these Chinese or these cheaper long duration batteries. The problem that the grid faces is not an energy problem, it's a power problem. And our battery storage systems are not those big batteries. They're very compact sized batteries, as you saw installed at those distribution network, and is able to give power out, more power out than a long duration usage of it. So it's a different use of batteries, which we feel is a much more appropriate use of energy storage. We don't think that having these massive battery banks situated out there is a right solution for the grid. If anything, our view is that you put these smaller batteries distributed throughout the grid, so you're not creating this big massive battery problem. And if needed be, you can manage all those batteries together as a bigger battery. But our battery is a smaller, much more compact 220 kilowatt hour system, or at most a 440 kilowatt hour system.
And so you were looking at, if I heard you right, so 2 strings 440 that's what the plan is?
That would be the maximum that we would install, either a 220 or a 440.
And 5 applications. If you get all 5 applications, you're prepared to do all 5?
Yes.
If you get approval from MTO, you're ready to do all 5?
Yes. Yes. Our intention would be to do all 5 if we are to get to, but to be honest, Mr. Mayor, I think our chances of getting all 5 are pretty slim.
And so, which leads into the next question. So are we the only municipality that you're applying on behalf of, or are you applying in other municipalities as well?
Our intention was to reach out municipalities that are along the 401 corridor and work with them in installing our stations all along. The interest with this municipality is its uniqueness as the crossroads of 416 and 401.
So you have other applications, or you're asking other municipalities for them to use that as well?
That's correct, sir.
And the last question, I think that
so we are working with like your Loblaws, your Metro, your Sobeys. We're gonna work with them, but we felt like in certain locations it was good to work with the municipalities.
That makes total sense. Last question is, so there's no charge to us to set them up. You're going to set them up. You're obviously the business operator. The government's paying, 50%. You're paying 50%. I'm the consumer. I park at one of these locations, and I want to do, a charge on my vehicle. What kind of cost am I looking at?
So market will determine what those costs are. Right now, as I was sharing in one of those, I think it was the plug share screen, was that, I think it's this one, right? So it's basically at this particular Brampton location, it's by the power that you draw. So when you look over here, it's 50 kilowatts is cheaper, 100 kilowatts is more expensive, 150 kilowatts is more expensive. Initially, the price was about 12 cents per minute, 22 cents per minute, and 32 cents per minute when you're connected to it. So these are a typical market pricing for somebody that basically charges their thing. But generally, the market is about $15 to somewhere between $15 to $20 for a fill up. That's the market price, and it's basically going to be determined by whatever is the market. If we're too expensive, nobody's going to come charge at our charging stations. If we are too cheap, then we're going to leave money on the table. The ministry has not mandated any charging tariffs, so it's basically driven by market. Generally, our tariffs are about 10 to 20% cheaper than whatever Tesla is charging.
Okay. And 32 cents a minute, 15 to 20 a charge. What would the normal duration for a charge be? Do you have that information as well? Are we looking at a half hour or looking at 20 minutes?
So basically, the fill up time depends on how much power your car is able to take. So we are able to provide up to 200 kilowatts of charging. And a typical charge event based on our data that we have looked at is about a 40 kilowatt hour charge event, where somebody's driving, they've depleted themselves down, and they want to have 40 kilowatt hours approximate of charging. So when you're filling up a tank of 40 kilowatt hours at the speed of 200, it's going to be approximately 25%, so 15-minute fill up. Right? So that's basically, in a nutshell, is what it is. However, in reality, things never work in that linear manner. In reality, what happens is that the car, because of the climate and because of the other things, basically slowly ramps up to a high speed charge. And when it gets a little bit closer to filling up, it slowly ramps it down to a much lower charge. So generally, the EV driver wants to get up to an 80% charge up, because after that, the car battery itself regulates it that it doesn't take too much charge from the charger. It just regulates the charge at a much lower speed as it gets more and close to the fill up. So two things do it. Whether the weather is really cold, the battery first gets itself warmed up in the car. The battery warms itself up before it takes full power. When it takes full power, it takes it for a duration of time, and then it slowly ramps itself down such that it regulates. The key that the car battery does is it makes sure that its health is first protected before it takes a speed of power in. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. But if we were to do a linear kind of thing, theoretically, you could fill up your car in 15 minutes.
Good. I think that's it for me for now. Oh, the last one is the application deadline, if I'm not mistaken, is it January 31st, 2024?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously, it's not a meeting of council tonight, it's a meeting of committee. So we don't make decisions at this committee, we make them at council meeting. So this will come back to our council for further discussion among council members and to see if we actually want to move forward with Jewel as a partner. So unless someone has further questions, I'll thank. Are we good, everybody?
Yep, I'm good.
So I'll thank Himanshu and Laura for the presentation tonight. We will discuss this again like I said, at an upcoming meeting. I think it'll probably be one of our January meetings, but we'll have an answer for you well before the 31st.
Thank you. We appreciate that. It does take a bit of time to kind of put the application together. So as soon as if the staff could let us know as soon as the council has made its decision, then we can start working on those applications. But we thank you for the time. Hopefully the session was informative. It's almost like EV charging 101 being provided. And we look forward to partnering up with the township. And happy holidays to everyone.
Thank you again. I know we've certainly been talking about charging stations. I was deputy mayor last term, and we talked about it when I was on committees before that. So we've been talking about it for 5 or 6 or 7 years now. And I think at this point, something's finally going to happen. So I appreciate it. Happy holidays to you as well. And we'll be in touch in the new year.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, consent agenda. There's nothing on the consent agenda, is there? No. Okay. So discussion items, and we are to launch options for 2024. I believe, Mr. Spencer, you can speak to that?
Sure. Just a little bit of background information, back 2020, Council 100 at the time.
And just pause for 1 sec. Can you hear him, Chris? Can you hear Mike?
Yep, yeah, I can hear him okay. Speak up a little bit would be great, but if not, I can still hear him okay. Did you hear me? Sorry.
No, we're just gonna turn the mic towards Mike so that you can see the room better while he speaks. Is that better, Chris? Very good.
Perfect, yep.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. As indicated, a little bit of background information back in the spring of 2020, Council Hunter at the time had asked us to bring a proposal together for the potential of having a on-site dedicated boat launch unit, similar to what a parking unit is in various municipal parking lots. As you can see, the recommendation was defeated at the time. This past May, the township posted the signs at the boat launch indicating that the spring and summer of 2024, there would be a charge for using the boat launch. This is a discussion I've been receiving. I contacted a number of municipalities in the Leeds rental area to find out what costs are for activating a boat launch. The bulk of them, there is no charge for the actual launching of the boat. There are a number, Rockville, Ganaway, and a number of Riva Lakes that actually charge the park of the vehicle with it. North Grenville has two locations, but there's no fee to leave your boat and trailer on site. Now, there's not a big area to do that in North Grenville, the two areas that they have. But the other ones, it's just a parking fee for the boat and trailer. If you just bring in your boat, leaving and putting your boat somewhere else and stay Rockville, then we don't charge for that. Obviously, our biggest event each year is just the opening of fishing, which is the second week of May, I believe. And we average probably anywhere between 150 and 200 boats that launch over the course of that opening every weekend. I've put a couple different options out here. There's been discussion before that I've had with a number of councilors about potentially having a fee for non-residents, or having a fee for residents and non-residents, having a daily fee or having a permit that potentially would be for the entire year to be able to launch your boat at any time, which just means to have a sticker or a permit in your windshield, similar to what you have for handicap parking. So that's potentially an option. We do have the capability of doing online registrations if council wanted to go with the fee structure. Similar to the QR code, you would scan the QR code and you would put the basic information in, and there would be a fee or a non-fee. Even if we did the QR code, if there was no fee, you could potentially put the QR code in for one season to be able to determine where the people are coming from. Which, again, it's hard to tell now. I would say it's probably 60% of the people that use the boat launch are not residents. That's what we're trying to do. So there's various items and discussion information things that are here. The one thing I also noted that there has been some discussion in the past about the boat activity at the Gallup Canal. Most weekends there are anywhere from 6 to 8 boats that are docked there for the weekend. There's been discussion in the past about having a student go down and collect money, and we weren't exactly in favor of that. If we had again QR code system set up, they would be required to log in, and if council felt that there was a desire to have a fee for having those boats there, then they would have to do that. This sort of thing could be policed by our law enforcement officers or staff during the weekdays. Yeah. Good. I'm going to start one brought up.
Well, Mr. Hunter, in my opinion, if you want to skate, pay a fee to skate. If you want to swim, you pay a fee to skate. I don't think it's any different. If you want to vote, you should have a fee for voting. And especially, as Mr. Spencer said, I think the vast majority of votes that are election are our township votes that are election there, especially opening day. Opening day is 150 or so, 40 maybe local, and 110 outside the community. We believe we're paid for new systems. We want everybody wants a nice boat launch, and we invest quite a bit of money in it. There's more money to be invested in it to really boost it up and make it. I don't think 5,000 taxpayers that never go down and need to be paying for this.
I think it's a great idea. I'm for, like the idea that year passed, especially for citizens of the townships. I'm all
I'm going to agree with councilors. I like the yearly pass idea with an option when something just shows up, we can scan the QR thing and do the date there or something. Do we have any rough numbers of how many what we would anticipate if you had to make a rough guess, if you had to have a license to come in the water there, give you a range? Are we talking 200 to 400 volts? Are we talking 1,000 volts? I mean, opening weekend is busy, but throughout the week, for the weeks during summer, on average, sometimes after Tuesday or Wednesday, there could be 5 to 10 volts in trailer. I mean, I'm not there every weekend, so I'm not exactly sure what is there, but during the week, there is a steady flow of anchors that are there. Whether it's just put the crap or like really hard to tell. I think if we had QR code set up, it would be mandatory if you wanted to launch a boat, then the requirement would be to put your address and license plate and all that sort of that would be able to track. Find exactly where
You know, if it was the same $5.
absolutely. Yeah, that's, and some of those are going to be repeat users, so 100 volts at the end of the month could really and 40 volts and probably can twitch. Well, that we can deal with the QR code too. So if we decided to have a yearly fee for residents or non-residents, we could also make it mandatory that every time they come, they still have to scan the QR code. So that if we know council or smell is really, we could say, well, yeah, he was a yearly, but he also went 15 times. But there is that option, they have that. Yeah. Could we make a hybrid? Really get the guy that says I'm picking up a US town, I don't want to use my time, I'm going to service, I don't want to have any QR code. Can we do a hybrid where the 3% of the people that don't do the technological thing can go over to the canteen and say, hey, here's 20 bucks is your launch code. Through the chair to Councilor Martel, I would say no on that. And the only reason I say that is because our canteen doesn't open until mid to late May, because it will open until September, late May weekend. The anglers season will miss longer than that. And the anglers are there 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Our canteen doesn't open primarily until 11:30 every day, so that would really be an option. Service down there is really not, I mean, at one time it was bad, but service down along the river is not that bad. You're not really getting picked up on, however, it used to be, it's been really well.
I think too, and I'll just jump in and steal your thought, because I think a lot of it is just the start, right? If you're somebody from Ottawa, the first time you come down, it's gonna be a surprise, right? You may not like it, you may be comfortable with it because they're doing it everywhere else. They launched the road. We're probably, one of the locations ultimately that they launch here because it's free. But if they have the information and they go away, like on those opening weekends, right? If people aren't QRing in the first time, all we have to do is have a brochure set up that has the QR on it. slide it under the windshield wiper so that they know what they can back the next time. This time you gotta wait for free. Next time you're not. And you gotta use this QR code. You can do it at home if it's not convenient.
Yeah, it can be done, the QR code can be done in advance. Someone could do it today, right, put the registration date, right, knowing that they're going at 6 AM on Saturday morning, and they've got their little permit.
Yeah.
It's right there.
And if we were to sign, lots of signage up in advance, local one time. It certainly will generate discussion, for sure. But ultimately, people will know. And locally, there'll still be lots of people that won't. They'll come in DUIs, as soon as you go north of the 401, that season doesn't open until either a week or 2 weeks further, so they all come down here to fish, but they may not be aware of the signage that's there, the new stuff that is there, but if we just do a campaign on that opening weekend, we'll hit someone in, and then, the ones we missed that weekend, you have signage, and it's virtually the same thing. All you have to do is take a picture. It's not hard to do at home.
Oh, it's not hard for you or I, but there are people that sort of be along with the project,
Well, I mean, it's township office that was kind of do it there. Karen?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's, there's no reason why they should.
Councilor.
I don't think you're going to be surprised by my answer on this, but no, I mean, I keep coming back to, how much are we going to irritate and make people upset and potentially lose their business for another dock, either east or west of us, and I'm not in favor of parking for sure. And the two places that have it, that were polled there were Brockville and Gananoque. I know Brockville already has paid parking citywide, and I believe Gananoque has lots of citywide parking. So I treat that all as most places are essentially free from a boat launch perspective. So I've seen nothing to convince me that I want to change my mind on my position that I'm not in favor of this. So I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're talking about educating people on the codes too, for your township, people, easy thing to tax. In March, there, but a thing that is tax, and they'll slip the QR code in there, and no sugar. Just stuck in there, don't anybody doesn't vote, not even gonna look at it, anybody votes, they're gonna look at it, it's I'm with it. Yeah. It's great.
You guys know. All right. One thing that hasn't been discussed, and I am hugely in favor of, I don't exactly know how it works, whether there's a sticker on the trailer exactly so that the bylaw officer knows exactly which vehicle is allowed to be there, which one is. Like, is it as simple as?
Yeah, so the QR code, when they fill it in, it's off the license.
So the license plate of the trailer. Because what happens if they're in truck? What do we have two vehicles? So what happens if Aaron drives that day and not me?
Well, you're gonna say more than that. So you know you're going to pay, you're gonna fill it up with X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, as opposed to the license.
All right. So it doesn't. So more than one license plate would work on the QR. Okay. That takes care of that question. The other one is, and this I have thought this for the longest time, and I just really think that Quebec voters take advantage of the upper Gallup Canal area. It becomes their campground. They have fires every weekend. Our folks can't do it. People that live in the township can't do it. They would get a bylaw ticket. Somehow, the Quebec voters allowed to come up, set their barbecue on the rocks for the day, be in bushes and camp there for 2 weeks. And I think that this QR code gives us the ability. I'm just not sure what kind of a fee or how you set up a fee when you set up that scan, when you set up that program. Is it gonna be like dockage in Brockville? Is it, like, that would be my question, right?
It is.
Right. Because it,
That's why this is the discussion.
well, I mean, for me, then this one is I 100% agree, you know, from a user standpoint, those that utilize, we put in the last council, maybe the council before that as well, I mean, I started with the council before that. But definitely this council is committed to, you know, obviously, you know, working on that entire area. We want to see continued improvements, and we know that every dollar that we get is valuable, right? So even if this only generates a small amount of money, it still could, you know, over 2 years, purchase a new dock, right? Or renovations to that, the bucket of gravel, and that's going to maintain the you know, the longevity, you know, whatever. And so I love that, but the other part is, I see that as a great potential. So,
Well, I mean, in reference to the government now, I don't know that we would look at trying to compare us to, say, the city of Rockland and Rockaway, or even the town of Prescott, that are based on the length of the boat. Because they're paying the length of the boat, but they're getting service. They're getting the service, potential electricity, they're getting, water and that sort of stuff. We're not offering any services, we're offering just that there's a spot for you to launch a boat. So I would look maybe potentially as just a flat fee, doesn't matter if it's a small boat or a large boat, it would be $20 a night or $25 a night if you want your boat to stay there for the night. As opposed to 3 cents or $2 or $3 a foot type thing based on the length of your boat, which is what the docking fees are.
yeah, I think I was thinking more the islands, but you know, when you reserve, you know, if you're one of 6 people who has, you know, the right to that spot on the island, you pay your fee. That's all. I think in my mind, that was what I was thinking, but that way I think the boating one
would have to be, yeah, the voting one would have to be first come, first served. Like we would, like someone, if you wouldn't be able to log in, and say, well, I want that spot property. Yeah, it's like you go there, the sign will be there, and you pay to register there at that time. You wouldn't be able to register in advance for a boat slip there, right? Just because there's obviously
John, did you have a question? In there?
Just, that area along there, I just had brought up to be, a couple other ones, a boat. There, the building that they go down there and couldn't stop because of all of the problem boats tied up there. And even I had that discussion before. We mow the grass and turn it, and everybody, not our residents that are using it, and when one of our residents does want to pull in for a minute, and let some kids off to go swimming there or something like that, because there's no place to do it. So I think you're on the right track with some kind of a fee there. There's on the park there, one time was there for 2 weeks, tied up.
Especially the inside protected bay, you know, on the, not even the canal side. Connected bay. My question to staff, and that's probably more on this side, is, so this, we would have to set up a bylaw that would have, I mean, obviously, if somebody doesn't pay, there has to be enforcement, otherwise, why try to charge somebody? So what we set up enforcement is that, so it's required to set up a bylaw that has, you know, fines and applicable things like that, and then if that's, you know, I'm right in that or wrong in that, you can correct me, but then are we looking at the bylaw officer issuing a ticket the same as they would for a parking offense, and then somebody has to go to the POA to, they want to dispute it, or how does that work?
Through the chair, most of that process is 100% correct. We become a little bit trickier situations to have our bylaw officer try to get to the boats at the canal or the bay, because we don't have boats to give him access to that. And when it comes to out of province individuals, we can issue them a day ticket. So if we're targeting those versus just the boat launch parking areas, we have a scenario that would be a bit easier to enforce with the right strategies and the right technology that we can set up. The other area would boaters park there for non-camping areas. Those would be a little trickier to enforce, but it would be
I think in my mind, right, like when it's the situation that we're talking about in the Upper Gallop, where, you know, it's construction holiday back. And the 2-week crew comes up with 40-foot of boat and, you know, walks in against the seawall as their coolers packed, you know, does their thing there for 2 weeks. They're there, they're not leaving there. So from an enforcement standpoint in my mind is that if John's going out and they didn't scan the QR, he's standing right there to have a conversation.
Exactly, he does that now in a lot of cases, when we get the calls that boats have been there for longer periods of time, and seeing that it's not a camping area. We don't have any set fines for that at this moment, we can explore those. And he can issue those fines, however, again, if they're out of province,
We can deal with that, but that's, but we can still,
out of problem areas, we're trying to address in multiple areas for other funds. And it's very tricky to actually get it.
And through the chair, but I also think it's important, you brought up something important. I think we should make sure there is some sort of a strong rule about, you know, how long is too long to stay. I think that's something that you should be looking at as well. And I also think that along that same vein, you know, we can't be doing it on the amount of bylaw hours we have. So because of the extra expenses this could incur, I think we should make sure we also set up a proper way to track the expenses and the revenue from this, so that we're able to keep the clear vision of what's happening there as well, right? You know, in case it costs us more than it's worth, to be honest, right? So
I think, you know, to that point, Chris, we certainly have the ability as council to ask the CAO. We can during summer months ask, you know, for clean yards to be looked at. You know, we can set priority as a council, how we, you know, see what kind of enforcement or education you want to put forward. We can give direction to the CAO to look at things like that, or areas of ability. So, you know, I mean, it might take focus away from something else for a while while we do that initial part, but you know, I think that we can still give that direction. So I think another, like a couple of things that I think have worked really good in this, to your comments earlier, is one, we'll find out how many divers use the dive site regularly. We'll have them all logged in if we use it for the dive site as well. Yeah, I did this too. I didn't mention that is an option for them. Yeah, I mean, we can do that for the dive site. I don't know that we would pay, but I think then we would have an accurate number, right? Like you know, and that way we understand exactly who's coming, how many are coming, you know, that sort of stuff. We're registered. We have some data that if we did choose to go forward further with it, and ultimately we could. We have numbers, or hopefully somewhat accurate numbers on who utilizes that northern part that seems to be a, you know, an issue every, well, maybe not an issue, but it certainly gets utilized every year, like number of individuals. And we'll find out, you know, exactly how many times people are using the boat launch as well. I think that there's a lot of good data we can cover, but I'm not sure what the end tail will have, but will there be any money generated or not? Like, I think Councilor Ward's comment, but at least we'll get some data in the first year or two. And I think it'll be positive.
I think also, Mr. Mayor, having the data, I know previous councils have tried to get grants to improve the diet, we had no data to say how many users. And that gives the council a chance that you decide in the future you want to improve it, put steps that you ask for one time or something. At least you can say, well, we're not 20 divers, we've got 500 divers, you summer players. A lot better option than trying to get.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so where are we on this? At this point, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going around. So.
There certainly is, Mr. Chair. I would say just looking for a little bit of framework from sort of the conversation. What I'm hearing is yearly pass or seasonal pass, not day passes, right? And is it the feeling that there would be a charge for residents and non-residents? And would that charge be the same?
So I'll weigh in first, I'm first on this one. For me, township residents are the ones that have already paid for it. They've already paid for the docks that are there, they've already paid for their taxes for the boat launch that's there. I think from that standpoint, they've already paid their fee, in my opinion. The ongoing maintenance and for the future part of it, I think can be borne by those that are from out of township. So for me, my fees would be related to out of township users, not township users. I'm just one person.
Yes, no, that's just trying to.
Well, I would certainly think that that's the desired, by the way, Mr. Chair. That the residents already pay for it.
You guys need to speak.
No, I concur with you, you can simplify that, but we're doing past, just so that the tax bill say you have a boat launch, you live here, you use 3 years, you pass. And then your taxes have an extent.
But I think we need,
I think from the town perspective, we still need that registration for tracking purposes. That would be better. It's just a matter of, it can be set up, if you click, as a resident, you're gonna skip that payment process.
my brain keeps going back to the fire. Right, it always was busy getting the email. I was thinking of today, I opened up the drawer, the permits, it's all I'm thinking, holy cow, it's almost time to renew this again. And we get an email that gets sent out that just tells you, okay, it's time to renew your permit, right, for your burn permit. So, like, to me, in my mind, that's, I see something like that incorporated into it as well. Guess once maybe we have everybody's data, we can maybe remind them that if they're going to use the boat launch thing next year, maybe that's something like that. But ultimately, I guess in my mind, it's a little bit like you have to follow the permit. Hold on, I just want to make sure. Did you say no fee to township or fee to township?
I don't like to need a township, no, really, they've already, they bought, I don't know, it's already used.
Okay, and you're.
I agree with Tori, but I just want to go through it. I hear you say there wouldn't be a day pass if you just want to use it for one day. Like, there's a lot of guys that just come once a month or maybe. They don't fish very much, I'm saying, but. Did you say there would be no day pass or?
I did, I did, and if I'm incorrect, that's why we want to make sure we get it correct. Right? Like, depending on what kind of seasonal pass it is, you want to.
I like the seasonal pass if you want to buy a seasonal pass, but if not, then you can buy a day pass. Because I mean, there's a lot of guys, like I fish a lot, but there's a lot of guys that don't fish a lot. They want to get out next weekend and they don't get back for another month. I feel like, why would you want to buy a early pass? Use it 2 or 3 times in the summer.
Well, if you're from Chemfield, when you're coming down, when you utilize the boat launch once,
Then you're going to get a day pass.
it's a.
I think so. Because I go to the river fish, and I know you're passing back there, I was back. I'm just saying how I feel as a fisherman.
Yeah, I'm just,
You know, I think that's good.
no, maybe you should just have it correct, so if the consensus is, from residents, to be no charge, right, for non-residents, charge would be, and put a flat fee of either $20 or $25 a year, that's for one time or 10
Yeah.
times. So don't have a day pass and don't have a year pass, just say, one-time fee is $25 or $20, and that's what you pay, not for 10 times. You still have to fill out the form, so we get the tracking. But then that way you're not getting into, $10 for the day pass. And so you can do a job. Still have to fill out the form, so
Where it's an amount that's enough that you actually get some revenue.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to deter people from going, right?
I like that.
Yeah, I would probably be okay with that, because I don't. Yeah.
So the one time fee for the year.
I think you're nailing it there. I think it's just good, it's gonna come down to what that actually is. Yeah. But, you know, overall, be willing to pay and pay. So
Or we go with at least the initial pre-buys of $20.
If you're doing it, you're including citizens of America.
It's free to town. In my mind, it's free to township users, so you can say something different.
No, I'm sure, I agree with that. I think $20 is pretty cheap for the year. Steve's better than
It is. We have, we, the Walls Marina. John's down there. We buy pass because you never know. Our boat in all season because the water fluctuates so much. So we always get a year's launching from the marina, just in case we need it, and it's more than $100. And you use it as many times as you want, but it's over $100.
What $20 in the first year would do is probably get absolutely everybody that uses it to pay. Very few people would be adverse to paying $20, and then we find out the data and we get the data we want, and then next year we review.
Yes. So that you can determine when you're we'll call it the day pass. Day pass. So right now,
Counselor has suggested 25. I'm going to support I'll support the 25 as well. I have a question for 25. That's still pretty cheap if you're coming down to catch the river walleye. It's pretty cheap to get your boat to water. So there's two or 25.
I'm gonna, with the experience for this, if any of that sounds better.
Chris, do you want to weigh in?
0.
That's my And, okay, so you got direction on the launch, but you heard lots of other discussion on
yes, so I would say, I'm gonna go to the next. Media one. Which is the dive site. We're very busy, we are going for the registration, but no fee more, because obviously, and I think from the perspective of educational piece, that we can probably combine it. The providers will realize the data for potential grants and opportunities in the future. Right, and I think the more challenging one is the out,
back to the dive site just for 1 second. I don't think that, like, in my mind, you don't like, the parking fee, right? Because we're talking about the launch. The way that we're describing this is that the launching of the boat is actually free. There's the parking of the boat charging, right? It's the parking. It's not the use of the launch, right? That's the suggestion. So that's the suggestion. Why does a boater get to park for $25 and somebody who dives gets to park for free?
I would suggest that what you're proposing, that they're charging $25 to launch it. You're not charging $25 park. Okay. Because the individual says, I'm not coming in to our code because I'm going to launch my boat, and then I'm going to drive up to the canteen and park up all there. Right, but they're parking the truck in the trailer. I think it gets away from that.
Okay, so my thought would be then that there's no fee at the dive site for that. Like in 2020. That's something to do. Okay, and then, so then where are we then? On the applicant. So can we have staff and come back with some options?
Yes, I think that would be a better way, so we can get rolling on launch, and actually as quick as possible. And that education piece.
Because we could always do this like similarly for that area, this year. Like last year, at the end of the year, we put the signage up to let everybody know that we changed this year, right? We could put the signage up there so that they can scan in and QR in, and maybe it's free this year. But it has that link and that information to them that next year, should they choose to come back, there's going to be a fee. You know, that way, if they've got that year notice, they know it's not any big surprise, and it gives us a year to sort of work out exactly what we want to do.
With the chair, we could also set limitations for the QR and say, hey, you can say that sit hours, 8 hours, or 8 and some fires.
Yeah, sure. So at some time over the next several months, we'll get a report back on that, or for that portion of it. Yeah, I don't think there's any rush for that. I just asked Izzy, but it was something so that we have at least for the 7 months. We're good. You have no direction on that? Go long. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All right. So I believe then. Here we go. All right. So I'm looking directly at the CBC. So for 7B, which is the implementing official plan consent policies, hydrological assessment and terrain analysis revisions. Are you going to speak to that one?
Sure. Okay, so council proposed an official plan amendments that would reduce the lot size in the township to 0.4 hectares from 1 hectare. So I'm going to get to the draft resolution in just a second, but that proposed amendment plus any comments we received so far is in the agenda package here and it's ready for the next council meeting. So I have that. But separate from that, the community development committee looked at an implementation policy or a draft resolution that would show how the provincial policy is going to be implemented in that official plan that was done. So it'll be separate from the official plan amendment. So committee reviewed a draft resolution. Staff got some feedback that we did not like the resolution as it was written, and committee asked staff to revise it. So the resolution that is in the agenda package here is my best interpretation of how committee would have liked to see that revised. There were some comments that a hydrogeological assessment and terrain analysis would be appropriate if a lot were less than 0.4 hectares. So that's what's changed here. Committee's welcome to share feedback or ask for some revisions on the law.
Okay, so I'll go quickly first and then we'll open it to the group. So just so that we all understand, so reading through all the reports, no one has an issue with us changing lot size, as long as we have a proper implementation policy.
I feel like that's correct.
So we're not really debating anymore the ability to go to 0.4. We've decided that through different agencies we've talked to, that's completely okay. Provided, I know you want to add it in.
Yep.
But it can be done. What I'm trying to say is we can do this in 2 processes, because I don't know that we're there yet on an implementation policy that we all agree on. But one thing that we do all agree on, I think, is that we're okay to go 0.4, and we know that there's going to have to be some sort of implementation policy. We're just not 100% in agreement. So, but that's ours, right? Implementation isn't part of the OPA.
Correct.
Right, so we can do the OPA, right, without the implementation policy. That's our own policy that has to go into our ZBL, which we approve ourselves.
If that influence fund doesn't go into our zoning bylaw amendment, then it's just a policy that says here is when a hydrological assessment analysis would be considered a reasonable condition of here's those conditions when we say yeah, that's a good condition. It is separate. I would just caution that the NCP's comments and no text recommendations say, hey, the official plan amendment may be for sure because it doesn't show how we're going to meet the provincial policy. Not saying you can't adopt that and make that application to the county. Yeah, yes, we can, and we could do that.
So how long does a typical OPA take for us through the counties? When we want to do it, we're looking at 6 months to do an OPA to get an approval?
Oh, so I'm gonna need to guess here. I don't know, but I think it would be less than 3 months, but I think especially if it's coming from the township, I don't think it's a really long amount of time.
I agree, it's probably closer to that 90 days.
So we're looking at 3 months.
I was a different reason.
I'm just thinking that we get it underway, it gets in place sooner, and within that 90-day framework, we get exactly what we need, that implementation policy. Do we get? My suggestion is obviously, you know, this, and we've had this conversation, like what we've had discussed peer review, so that, you know, as long as what advice we've been given is accurate at 100%, when it's peer reviewed, then I have no issue with that. If we have it peer reviewed and the advice that we get is different, then I think, you know, there's a further discussion that has to happen. But I think we still agree that from an OPA standpoint, we should move that process, that piece move forward. The implementation policy doesn't have to go with the That's my 2 cents. Now everybody else needs to weigh in. Chris, do you want to go?
Yeah, so the only thing that comes to mind on that statement, and I agree, we should try and push the 1 acre through and work on the implementation. Was the province's feedback not that they were expecting a little bit more before they would agree to that with regards to the water, etc., or maybe I just misread that? I just got the impression that they wanted to see that as part of the, you know, part of the process.
Yeah, so for the chair, the ministry comments are in the agenda package, so if I can find it, I can pull it exactly, but basically they're saying the initial guidelines maybe future term without the implementation policy, because we don't see how we are meeting the provincial guidelines.
We're gonna end up where we always end up in this, right? With
I know.
that discussion, because there are others that are doing it without those guidelines that have already been approved. We're gonna end up in the same counterproductive discussion we always end up in. And I'm trying my best to avoid it, so.
And I agree, but it's page 61, by the way. 149 is the ministry's letter, but you know, and maybe it's not as clear as I was highlighting, but I mean, it is something that they really call out is the hydro G and trade analysis. But you know, part of me keeps coming back to it. I want to try and push this forward as well. You know, do we get adequate information to be able to make some sort of a call based on the SNC input? Is where I'm hoping that supplements some of what their requirement is. But again, I don't want to get into this discussion. I don't think we need to get into that right now. I would love to put it forth as is and come back and finish that one up, though.
So our approval body is the United Counties, right?
For the official plan.
Right. So the province weighs in on what their interpretation of it is, but ultimately it's whether the United Counties says yes.
The Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing has the authority to the county partnership plan. So I'm not sure if they could or even would extend it if they didn't agree with it.
OPAs are counties. They got that. Yeah.
In maybe
Yeah. Not everyone.
Yeah.
I know the answer to that. Dave, you were gonna say something? Sorry, see,
I think with respect to this, if, let's say if there's a commitment on committee's part within the next 90 days to get implementation policy in place that would, I would say, move forward with the okay then.
yeah, and I think we can get the information. I can say this, Chris is comfortable moving it forward as is. I'm comfortable moving it forward as is, provided that we have a peer review that indicates that's what we have to do. If that comes back, I've said this to you, we've had this discussion away from here, that if that's required and that's what it takes to get us to get to 1 acre lots, sure, I'll go there. I struggle so much, you drive everywhere in our township. We have wells everywhere in Spencerville. I live on a smaller than 1 acre lot. That's my own home and have well septic, and so does every other lot along where I live. We have them everywhere in the township. I just struggle to think that all of those lots were built at 2.47 and were allowed. Now we're not going to allow anybody to have a lot that small without putting in all those extra things. So it was done before. I can't see why I can't do it. But again, my eyes, peer review, once peer review, if that's what it says, that's what it is. I would agree 100%. I'm good with that. These two have to speak. So
Yeah, I agree with the amendment. Sometimes when you want the system to change, you just have to change the system, so.
I'm not sure what either one of them said. I was listening. I'm still not sure what either one of them said.
Oh.
I'm saying we should go ahead with the amendment. Move forward from there, and I think to see that we should start working on the commission. I think I start somewhere, and let's go ahead and do it. What was I say?
Okay. I think that's.
With the rest, if the initial plan, that's ready to go to council's agenda on December 11th.
So I think we're good with that.
Information policy, we're not making any changes to it right now, but once we're going to have a peer review by a legal.
Yeah, I think legal and I think.
Legal and.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think both. I think it's just more than just Chris, but yeah. And we'll definitely have that in 90 days, or at least I think we should be able to have that in 90 days. So I think we can keep that. I think we've all four of us have said at this level that we're all okay with the hydro G and a terrain analysis, if that's what peer review tells us we need. Right? So that means that one way or the other, once we get that information, we'll move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and to the mayor's point, but to the chair, if a peer review says that, that's great. If a peer review comes back and says you need some level of decision tree, that's where I keep coming back to when we had that presentation from SNC. Do we get a certain comfort level from when they do their analysis at the zoning side? When they provide their feedback, that gives us enough information to know whether that property needs one or not, so that staff can make an informed decision. And I keep coming back to that because I do think that when this is reviewed, there may or may not need to be some sort of a structure so that staff knows how to decide based on the evidence that's given by property.
I mean, ultimately, what we're doing here doesn't give us the ability to create more lots. It gives us the ability to create a smaller lot. Correct?
More lots could be created because like a lot right now that is less than 2.5 acres, could separate, right? Because we couldn't have 2.47 acres twice. So smaller right now.
Well, you could. You just have to do an application. We see them all the time.
Beneficial plan application. So more sites could be
Well, we've done, not to debate, I know this isn't a debate, but I mean, the corner of Hyman Road and Shanley Road, I mean, we did one there where we allowed it, we didn't do an official tenant. We went to, we allowed them to sever off, it was a 0.98 acre, and it was held under, the only thing that was the severance application was human approved.
I don't know the details of the application, but was it agricultural or is it agricultural?
I don't remember that part of the specific, my point is that we allowed a smaller lot to be severed off. From it, like you're only allowed so many severances off a single piece of property, right? Rural, how many are we allowed to create?
2 new lots by severance.
2 new lots by severance, so 1 original plus 2 more, or 2 total?
1 original plus 2 more.
1 original plus 2 more, so regardless of whether that's a 1 acre lot or a 100 acre lot, you're still only allowed to do 2 lots. I just want to be clear.
No, and then I just think we're move on. I think really what I'm hearing is that there's going to be direction to have peer review. Fair opinions. All right. We come back and we'll revisit that implementation policy. Ironclad within that 90 days.
I think fair enough. I think my comment is regardless of whether it's a 100 acre lot or a 1 acre lot, where you're positioning your house is up to you, right? And there's nothing to say to the 1 acre lot as you said, 100 acre lot, that they don't both build within a certain distance of each other, right? And whether it's 100 acres of the sever off or 1 acre, it really doesn't matter. It's where your house is.
There's no way that there's really.
Okay. We've done it for 5 meetings, that's another one more.
Through the chair, I had a couple more points that are not really related to this exact, well, kind of related to this. Is that okay?
I think we're done actually with this. I think we've given, moving it on, unless you're changing your stance on it, like, it's time to move on.
Okay, no, I was just based on some of the feedback we got from people that had responded, but that's fine.
But we're gonna have it on for discussion again on next council meeting. This is just to give direction to get it on for next council meeting. Let's, dead horse, let's kick it then.
Okay, no, it's not really a dead horse, like I said. I think it's just it doesn't matter. We can talk about it later. Sure.
Okay. All right, 8A, application for severance for 3302 Glenspell Road.
I mentioned severance on the Glenspell Road. So, this would be a proposed, almost 4 hectare lot at 213 Glenspell Road, in the township school policy area. We looked at the proposed application, considering the, provisions for the rural area. We did minimum distance separation from the livestock facility. We looked at agricultural resources and natural heritage features. So I find that the proposal is generally consistent with the township official plan and so bylaw, and staff recommending in favor of the severance application.
I'm just trying to get to the right page. Here with me.
68.
Page 68, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. 60. Okay, all right, for discussion, anyone? I'm just gonna go raising the hands for this one, if anyone has any comments or questions that they want to go with. Chris, did you have anything? No?
Yeah, nothing jumped out here that I thought I was concerned about. So
my question, and this will go back to kind of, this is a 3.97 hectare lot, right? So when you review, because this, you did all of those reviews for this as well, right? Whether you thought there would be a need be for either a G or an analysis.
Well, the well is more than 1 hectare, so that's like this front.
Right, but it's mentioned in there, so, right? Then you looked at all the distance separations and,
Oh, minimum distance separation has to do with the distance to a livestock facility. So, it deals with things like, overflowing, the food, the things, compatible.
okay, and the license pit is 700 meters, so 0 issue there.
No.
Okay, so there's a recommendation then. Recommendation reads, the committee recommend the council recommend in favor of Severn's application B-134-23. So I will move that. So move, seconded, and then I will call a question if there's any further discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Good. Okay, so B, pre-budget approval for PSD budget software treasurer.
Excuse me. So the purpose of this pre-budget approval is to purchase the budgeting software to enhance our quarterly reporting, create some efficiencies in the budget process, and have the ability to generate the multi-year forecasts. What I generated last year for the operating budget that had a 2-year look back, that I just did that in Excel. Based on a report I got from VSOP, so not ideal to do that on 4-year projection of the other thing. So currently, we do use VSOP to handle the budget process. The cost of that module is very minimal. We get around $180 a year for that. But it doesn't really have any customization of the reports or even the ability to get the reports into Excel. I would have to do all that manually. So when the reports that you guys get from your package right now, they're just PDFs of what's in it. But if I want to change the view on that for a presentation to highlight something, I've kind of got to do that as hypothesis. And right now, the process is for budget, because we've got all the operating budgets out right now. Is I give them sheets of paper that has lines on it for them to write their number in. And then I go and enter it into the system. And I don't know if you've seen these guys, but you know, they do make mistakes. So it does cause a lot of frustration balancing this representing staff. So when I was at the NFOA conference, I went to see Plastica. They had a booth there, and their process was really robust, and it just would feed the data from Unisoft in there, and we could use that to create our quarterly reports, do our budgets, do salary forecasts, capital forecasts, do all those things. So I got them to do a presentation for the senior management team, and it was well attended and well reviewed. However, might be a little bit too much for what we need as far as too much horsepower. So I reached out to Public Sector Digest, or PSD, which we have our asset management program citywide with them, and looked at their budgeting software, and had a much better price point in the fact that it was an actual software purchase, not a 5-year agreement as in requested. So now the PSD budget is technically under that $75,000, but still thought with the annual cost in future years, it makes that it goes over the crush it. It's not like you use once and then. So it's not a long time thing, so that's kind of why I'm bringing it here for pre-budget approval, and it's software, so it's not a capital item. This would go into our operating budget, so it's part of the operating budget. So I broke down the costs for both systems. And the implementation cost was quite good with Questica. However, their software was, you pay that license every year, and it allows for 20 users. So more users than we would need, but still, with TSD, it's a one-time software cost, and we're getting that discounted because we have business with them already. So we're getting a quite a significant discount on the program itself. The implementation cost is high, and it should be approved or get direction to take this further. I would certainly ask about those implementation costs. And what the vision for this was, because we're in December, I would still go through the regular budget process the same way that you've seen it before. However, once we get past the budget into summer, I would start to change the quarterly reports come out of TSD budget software. Sure. And that's what will be presented. And as well, they do a budget book as well. I looked at when I reached out to the treasurers, TSD came back very well regarding IM as far as the usage and really helps them. One concept that I noted was looking at Rideau Lakes on their website. They have 3 levels of budget detail. So you could have the absolute top level kind of by department as to what those costs are, but then you can actually go in and drill further to break down the transaction levels. So from a transparency perspective, it allows the treasurer to paint a better picture for the public to understand where the money is. So that's basically it in a nutshell. For council and committee's consideration.
Perfect, thanks, Treasurer. So there is a recommendation. The recommendation reads: the committee recommends to council that the treasurer enter an agreement with Public Sector Digest to purchase the operating salary and capital budgeting software for use 2024 in 2024 at a cost of $6,900 plus future annual maintenance costs of $97. Okay, so that's the recommendation. At some point I'll ask, probably should ask for a mover and a seconder now before we discuss. Yeah. Okay, so I need somebody to move it. Moved by Councilor Snell, seconded by Councilor Ward. Okay, now we're looking for discussion. Let's go. Who wants to go first? I'll go first. Go.
Through the chair to the treasurer, this affect anyone's work hours? Somebody that have less work hours software that's doing their job. In this particular case, not 100% in that regard. I think this is more on how it's presented, and I think where we see the ability to create more pockets of time in people's workflows is for when we're compiling the 2025 budget. Whereas instead of me printing materials, distributing them at a SMT meeting, getting the sheets back, the salary was all done by the treasurer anyway, so that will help me, yes. And then the other part of that means we can hopefully give more time to discuss the numbers in the budget rather than kind of putting it, spending all that time together. So it allows us to put the data together easier and then present it in a better way that can be better understood by the public. And that way, in future years, I would just say to the other departments that your budgets are loaded, go in and fill in. And then I would say when it's done, I'll compile it. If I heard you correctly, did you say that if I was a resident, I would be able to look in and transparency would be clear, I would go down and say, hey, look, it'd be about 25 for all the take, or the store last.
If we wanted to present, that would be a committee and council decision as far as how much. Right now, all that we post on our website is the budget presentation that I gave, and also the budget model.
My question was, it's built into the software that the resident can.
Correct. Another potential savings of cost is with regards to audit. Right now, our auditors prepare financial statements. This program is. So if we decide down the road that we would rather prepare our own financial statements and have the auditors review and test them, then we would see an incremental savings in our audit costs.
I'm good.
So, to the mayor, to the treasurer, Sean, this is gonna actually save you and make your job a lot easier, correct?
Correct.
That's great idea. Yeah, I expected you.
Mr. Chair?
Sorry.
It's okay, no problem. I did exactly what you asked me to do. Speak up. I mean, you know, it's not a bias, but I mean, I love charts and I love data, and so, you know, I think there's an opportunity here. I also think there is potentially some savings, but you know, but it's just because I've done this for decades of my life, and so I think the reality is we'll know that the data is mostly error free. I think there's always, you know, that's always a big aspect so that we can make the right decisions. You know, I see all sorts of good things from it. I know it's a little more expensive than we spend today, but I think it's important to have that. And I do think that it'll allow us to, as the community grows, as staff requirements grow, this will be offset by the fact that we don't need maybe to grow this occupation as quickly as others, for instance. So I'm in support of it. I think it's, you know, I've seen lots more costly software than this, and you know, it's just the way it is. So.
Did you have a question there or no?
No, it was just a comment about the software itself, and I do think it allows for a lot more opportunity for us to have, like I said, good data and charts and stuff, and an opportunity to make sure we have the right data and good decisions. So I'm okay with it.
A lot clearer, I think, for sure. Okay, I think you knocked my question out already, but I know I spoke with the treasurer earlier today. So 69,100 of software is not a capital purchase.
Correct. Like the 26,600 is the software cost, and the rest is implementation cost. And I would like to work with PSD on that number.
Okay. So my thought process was, you know, years ago, we were given municipal modernization. And we've sort of tried to tie that to, you know, the township office and to projects that, you know, we will or we won't end up getting done. But we've had that money for a lot of years. And the idea when we got it was to spend it, not to save it. And I was hopeful that something like this is exactly what municipal modernization dollars were given to us for years, as we saw a very small reduction in our OMPF this year, but we can see a small reduction, or for next year. That's exactly what this was for, is to make operational efficiencies, so we can make up for those losses of percentage. So to me, this would be a perfect place. However, it's not for operational use, it's only for capital use. And so I struggle. Am I wrong in that? I see heads shaking.
Mr. Chair, it can be for operational efficiency.
I thought it was for capital purchases to create operational efficiencies. We do still have, yeah, for software before.
We utilize a portion of that. Yes, so which was on the capital, which is the operation. Yeah. So it would be, I think it would be an analogy.
So,
Offset,
so
offset.
So the 69.1 would make sense to use it for the ongoing cost, wouldn't be, right? Just so that I've got my brain on what would be involved. Okay, okay. So then for me, I think, right, for a source of revenue, I think that's exactly what municipal modernization dollars were intended for. So for me, I'd love to see that, you know, beside that, when we get that budget, the 69.1, instead of it being in the covered by taxation, that it's covered by municipal modernization. I mean, I'm going to support it either way, but you know, for me, I think that's a perfect fit for what that is intended.
Through the chair, this will actually show up in the operating budget, not capital. So that'll be set up in a different way. So what you'll see is the charge for $69,100, and then you'll see offsetting credit is what's transferred from reserves for $69,000. So that it accomplishes the same thing, but the data is not presented in the same.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's not to go towards ongoing.
Right.
Ongoing. That's why I was confusing operational and the capital cost is, you know, the ongoing operational. I know it's not intended for that. It's not intended because that money runs out. Right?
Then that $9,700 maintenance fee, that is third version control.
Yeah.
So that way, because we will own the software, well, that will be all the updates.
Okay. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. If there are further questions or comments, see shaking. I'm gonna call the question on all in favor. Okay, and the difficult conversations just keep coming tonight. I keep going down. This one doesn't get any easier. So, we're on to item C, which is the 2024 COLA, which is cost of living adjustment approval. Sorry, did I miss something? Yeah, I thought it was on there. I think it was on there, right? I thought, yeah. You guys are,
My apologies. Because, we will need to update that as it goes to council because we need council permission to utilize modernization. So that's all. So it's just something we were going to.
well, modernization dollar, but modernization dollars are in the recommendation as it's read. I mean,
I'm pretty sure that's what you're trying to look out for.
right, I mean, I ran about where I'd like to see it come from. Recommendations are in the second, so I think the vote was on the actual recommendation. The council didn't say something different. Okay, so let's go to COLA. Trying to move the shit.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, good chair, is the COLA approval for 2024. This is to approve the 2024 COLA for union and non-union staff. Just give a bit of background, as per the personnel policy by 2015-22, non-union staff salaries are adjusted with an annual cost of living adjustment for COLA. The COLA is determined by the annual homeowner's pension annual increase. In 2023, this amount was 6%. Council opted for a 3% increase for union and non-union members. So we deviated from the union agreement, and just want to stop here and make a point of clarity that whenever we're talking about union for this particular item, it is just the QP. Yes, local 2311 -02. So this is just for the township unionized employees. So I know there's other negotiations going on with other unions, but this only applies to that local 2311-02. So I just wanted to make sure I got that into public record, and then we can kind of dive down in.
So just point of clarity, you're referring that it's not for port union, that's a separate contract, but this covers all unionized workers that work in public works, recreation, and environmental services.
Yeah, because
No, that's good.
that was governed in their contract.
Yeah.
So,
COLA, right?
yeah. So, for union members of local 2311-02, the 2024 salaries would increase by 1.75 or COLA, whichever is greater. So the last year of that collective bargaining agreement. OMERS has set the 2024 pension inflation increase to 4.93%. Union salaries will be increased on January 1st by this amount. The reference, I put a little table together from other treasurers that is what increases were for 2023 and what will be presented for 2024. This across the big email database that the treasurers share with each other, and 76 municipalities participated. I just made a note here that Rio Lakes and Augusta based their COLA on October CPI, which was 3%. That's why they're both the same there. But here, just from Rio Lakes, South Augusta, Front of Young, those were the only ones that had non-union that were part of this. Like some of the other townships are tied to union contracts, so I pulled those out. So in 2023, ranged from 5% or 5.5% to 6%. We came in at 3%. This year, they're kind of ranging from 3 to 5%. We're coming in at 4.3%. So just the total combined 2-year wage increase would be 7.93% on for union and non-union for the last 2 years, which compares with where some of the other townships are. Now, the union average and non-union average, I just included that just to get some references to what's happening across the whole province of Ontario. So it might be a little bit different in northern areas, so Western Ontario, just took the average of all those. And so the union average over the 2 years was 5.63, and then the non-union average was 7. So we're right in where we were hoping we would be. While the increase for 2024 is slightly above average, township was significantly below 2023. It has started slow and expected to reach target levels in 2024. We should regulate the COLA for future years back to original levels of 1 to 2%. So how we're going to see this later when in February when I present the operating budget is I will likely be a little more conservative with the interest income that we're getting on our investments. That we can start to see that slide, and whatever we can, we're going to lock it in for as long as we can, at the highest rate that we can now to preserve that interest income. But that's not target, that's just the context. So based on current staffing levels, the COLA will add approximately $142,955.11 to the 2024 salary budget.
Good.
I'm good.
Right. On again. Okay, so point of clarity in regard to the bylaw. If I'm not mistaken, and you correct me, but it is as per council approval. Correct? Okay. So this indicates, it doesn't say anywhere at all. I didn't read that it said that. I mean, I know what we've done in the past. We varied from that last year, for sure. We utilized the as per council approval portion, and I think that when we have information come in front of us, that we actually have to say, you don't have to go with what that says. We chose to deviate from that policy. Last year, he was council.
Yes, one point that is still not, there is no latitude.
Yeah, so, which leads me into my next question. We're proposing 4.93. I've looked at many different ways of determining what COLA actually is. What is the number that we use and how we come up with COLA 3.8?
So for some of those other, like Rideau Lakes and, Augusta, they use specifically October CPI, which is 3.8. We use the annual OMERS when it comes out, so that 4.93 is published on the OMERS website. As to what the pension inflation adjustment is for 2024, and that was released as 4.93.
And so, okay, fair. And when I was looking at Ontario pension today, it was 4.8, but it wasn't OMERS that I was on. It was a different one, it was 4.8. So
Just so make it better, I don't specifically speak.
OMERS. Okay. No, that's
Yeah,
good.
no,
And so that everyone's clear here, the last year of the negotiated contract for unionized employees says, oh, correct. So we really have no choice. Here it is. Correct. It's 4.93. Right. Correct. And I went, and I'm gonna go on this, again, this year we went we bumped that number to 3% last year. From whatever the negotiated number was, 1.75 or 1.5.
through the chair, it was 1.75. You added 1.25.
2.5. Yeah. And I know well, in my mind, we're talking both things here. So, so I think we're in whether we like it or not on the unionized side. It's 4.93. There's no variation to that. It's a collective bargaining agreement that was signed in May. Unless we're going higher, there's no way to have that adjusted. So we're at 4.93. The real discussion is whether or not we use that same COLA number for non-unionized.
Recommendation that we do,
Yeah.
yes, and that's within my office. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, and I think last year we made a point in the reduction of that for unity to keep those increase. We felt the 1.75 needed to bump to get it up a little bit, and in fairness, we didn't feel like giving the non-unionized a larger increase than what the union was. And my mind this year is that I like that parity number. I'd like to see that for what it's worth, like a substantial position. I'd like to see those numbers stay exactly the same. So that's my 2 cents. I guess I support your recommendation. That's right. However, there are more than me here, and it is as per council. So, I think it warrants, further input, maybe not, maybe it's a simple resolution. So,
Yeah. I just have a question, to the CAO. Non-unionized employees, are they all making the same wage right now? Or some making more than others?
So it would apply to everybody, so yes.
That includes the people who are working in public works and everywhere else. Non-unionized employees, so referring to. Like less than time or less. Where he's non-unionized employees, he's not. Administration.
No. So there used to be, so, both, well, there's, yes, there's a grid in the union. So depending on position and role, yes.
Preston,
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to change it from have the non-unionized have a different one than unionized this year. I think last year, inflation was high. We had to do obviously for the sake of the township, and I think this is something we can afford. So I'm in favor of it.
so there is a recommendation, yeah? Did I read it already or? No. No, okay, so the committee recommended the council approve the 2024 COLA increase of 4.93 for all union and non-union staff effective January 1st, 2024. My only question will be, and I know Sean already, or Treasury already suggested that is the correct number as per what our bylaw says. It's not a different number, it's not 5.1, it's not 4.8. We're 100% sure it's 4.93. Correct. That's it for all my questions. Okay, moved by Councillor Martel, seconded by Councillor Smale. Further discussion? Hearing none, then I will call the question. All in favor? 4. And so we'll see that back. We'll see that back next week. And council will have another go at it. All right, so this might take you a month to do it clear. When I was reading through, I was like, wow, it was busy year. So 2020, the item D8D, which is 2023 year-end report.
We shared, this is not by any means, very executive level highlights. First of all, congratulations, you've also got just touching on a couple of things. Through intergovernmental, recently in the spring, I believe it was, for the non-PQA wineries in asking the local government to cut the cost of sharing. So I'm reading, sorry. Let me take you off a little bit for distance.
I don't think you made any mistakes.
So current here to eliminate the why that we want we're also in a eligible position for $150,000 funding through forestry for street cleanup and forestry generation. Also supported the Castle Health team for an application under the Your Health Plan Connect to hopefully hire additional professionals. Works many times with FMC for a memorandum of understanding for forestry services for brushing, as well as recently entered into an agreement with 16 other participating municipalities for the watershed program and services. As we all know, we're still going through online discussions and the consultation processes with the UCFP to get a clear process. We're still in works and we'll be discussing in future budgets for the landings and sure departments care, legacy care. Personnel this year has been quiet for some for hires. Also, we just recently recognized the long-term service award for employees. We have 5 there, as well as the number of fire department volunteer firefighters.
Can I just stop that for a second? We've only hired one person total this year?
Correct.
Really?
Correct.
I was blown away. I was like, we only hired one person.
Compared to last year.
Yeah. I was when I went through the package, I was like, okay, sorry to stop.
Let's see. I don't like to take away that you won't see a lot in this report. I thought that intergovernmental clearly associated with the township So you'll see that we finally finished up the donations for the Ontarian for the main grain elevator exhibit, which has been very well received to the public as well as to the township court. Recently, we've come into a couple of different developments, future for leasing as well as for land potentially. Finally got approval for those 3 future streets for the development of the Meadows, as well as of course the restored programs that we just covered last week. We've had a total of 5 zoning bylaw amendments and 1 community improvement project, which we're expecting probably more than a year to be looked at. As of last week, we have 115 building permits issued. We participated again in expecting the buildings for future years, the annual SNC Free Tree Day, which is again for everyone to be sold out in days, I believe, for SNC assistance to that program. As per usual, through the community grants program, we also do a lot of in-kind assistance. This year, the large focus is through the SBCC, with multiple different events through Easter weekend and Halloween, and just recently the special food bill. Such as the Cardinal Festival Committee for Canada Day and Labor Day for the street closures, bleachers, and other areas. Something new this year was the Great Waterfront Trail. We organized a little pit stop snack station where some of the and assisted in getting snacks, water, having people taking a rest, taking the views of the river on waterfront. Compared to other years, it's been pretty quiet. We haven't had any control treatments. However, depending on how some grant goes, we will be looking for the future year. 7 severances received. The second program was that we are waiting their final report for the second program. Hoping for that in the near future in the new year. We haven't been quite a few years, but this year we hosted the 111th annual Eastern Ontario Firefighters Association Convention, which we declared in municipal significance event. It was again very well attended, lots of turnout. We did pretty good in the grand scheme of things, I'd say. Again, not hiring a lot of work, but what did receive the funding for the agricultural clean technology programs, aiming to develop and adopt new technologies for driving low economy. In August, we hosted the Batesville Bass Fishing Derby. That was held at the federal boat launch and was very well received and very popular. Something we haven't really highlighted a lot was AODA randomly selects municipalities various years for compliance audits. We did receive that. We are 3 and clear. The one thing that they were able to pinpoint was we needed additional signage at the Cardinal Waterfront recreation pathway / and a couple other minor updates with wording for this multi-year accessibility plan, which is internal. So I'm sure a lot of people have noticed over the last couple months that there's all of Facebook Live have an end of trail sign. It was a requirement. We utilized new policies this year, which implemented banner poles. We only had a couple of those new big requests, but we have expanded on Pride Month, National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, as well as Remembrance Day. As you can see in the report, there was a number of proclamations received in 2023. Just to highlight on recreation for recreation teams, particularly the coordinator, has created a number of new recreation activities that were held throughout the year, and again, very well received by the community. I'm not going to go through the whole list of additional policies that were updated and new policies that were corrected. Again, this is very as compared to what I could be pulling. And then for emergency management, we did complete our, required annual emergency control meeting, which we've also got the minor updates for bylaws with membership and clarification on various sections.
Thank you to the clerk. I think everybody's going to go probably on this one quickly, but I will go and comment on all of our staff. I know as a green new council, we've needed lots of help, whether it's in making sure we continue down our path of proper procedure and policies, or following etiquette and rules. And I would like to say thank you to staff for your patience as we work through getting our feet under us. I've been told at the 1 year point we're not allowed to say we're green anymore, or that we should have our acts together, and we should be contributing as well as staff does. So what this outlines, or what the clerk has outlined, is the fantastic work that our staff has done over the last year, and there's a lot of it for a very small complement of workers. So for the folks that we do have, I will say you do a fantastic job, as much as we continue to demand more and push harder and do that. I will say thank you to all of you for doing it. So we'll open it up to everyone else to comment, but I just wanted to so
That's fantastic. Awesome. Really well done.
which gets them.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
like I said, there's a heck of a lot.
Reading through it. It's like, wow. That's good.
That's right.
No, you pretty much, I don't know if you apologize. Maybe you should throw out a quick apology. It's not gonna change.
Well,
I just like to say, thank you all for the government staff over the years. We really great this, and thank you all for patience. The press of what we accomplished, I was amazed that was someone just talked about things that I've done. Like I read this, and I'm like, good job, thanks.
Good savings, survive the first 3 months. And third year.
yeah, that's very good. Third, fourth, it's about to get hot. Chris, anything?
No, to your point, Mr. Mayor. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here, and when you look at some of the things that we're up to, we did a lot of thinking outside of the box things, which I was really proud to see how we had a few challenges, and we being staff mostly with our support came up with some great initiatives and managed to get all the stuff done that we were asking, and had a lot of patience with us as a first year council as well. So great job, thanks a lot, and you can only hear me clapping because I have my I was on mute, of course, but like I said, thanks a lot for all the support, guys.
It's certainly a big ship, and it's hard to turn, and it's hard to steer differently, and it's certainly a different group here, trying to give direction differently. So that requires a great deal of teamwork on with staff and with this group that's up here, and I appreciate, as much as we often have some difficult discussions, I appreciate the ability to have those difficult discussions. I can speak on behalf of the entire group when I say thank you for allowing us that leeway to learn and grow, and ultimately achieve our mandate, which is they're not huge changes. Like John said, we survived our first year, but as we attempt to change course of that ship, it's a big ship, and we'll start to see the fruit of all of that in the years to come. So I commend staff, and again thank you for all you do. Okay. This keeps getting harder and harder. The Indigenous land acknowledgement. Who will speak to this? This is one that I wanted to see for a year. But I did my best to pronounce all 5 names, and I'll tell you, I can do too. I completely concur with what the report says, so, yeah, sorry, I was getting, go.
Thank you for the chair, I agree, that's why, when I saw them, that's why I started thinking of other options.
Okay.
Because we don't want to encounter those scenarios where,
Yep.
right? So in August, it was requested, it did take a bit of time to actually track down, what traditional indigenous territories were applicable to our area, so apologies for the delay, but we didn't want to, inadvertently omit or add territories that should not be included in this area, and have issues with being offended or anything like that. Through our research, we were able to identify 5. And I did do just a quick snippet to show on the outline which ones were applicable and to give something back up for this, because it was difficult to actually confirm some of those. So currently we have identified within Everett Cardinal. I'm going to do the ones that are easier to pronounce so that way I do not butcher them on the camera. For Algonquin, Mohawk, Huron, Wendat, and then the Empire, traditional Native territory. I have come up with, as noted, a number of different multiple options for council to think about whenever they're doing this. There's the option of a land development added to the council agenda after all the order. I have also included the update to the procedure bylaw if that is considered. This would be read aloud. Chair. Another option during committee meetings, the leaving on to place on the agenda cover at the top, where you sometimes you see special comments. So if we had a special event 6 p.m. that would go, and that would be a standing thing that would be on all future agendas we can incorporate and display. We can also provide more open acknowledgement at committee meetings and council meetings, and more simplified version at committee or council meetings. It's really the direction of council, we kind of left it open. As mentioned, it is tricky to pronounce some of these names correctly, depending on where you Google or who you speak with in different communities. There are different ways to pronounce them, even throughout those. So I suggest to be more on the safe side for those that are read aloud of council, and then we wanted to incorporate some of the longer wording that has traditional indigenous names. We put that as the statement that's on the actual cover page. But it is a council direction that provided draft wording for a longer version and then a shorter version. There's very simple policy implications if council so chooses to incorporate this as an actual statement that's really allowed on the council agenda. Procedural bylaw states that we have a template outlined within it, so it would be a very minor amendment we have to go through to add to that one item. And then the recommendation is threefold. That direct staff update procedure bylaws again, which choose to incorporate word acknowledgement agenda items to the council agenda, to incorporate word acknowledgement statement as part of the agenda cover page for all committee agendas, and 3, provide direction to staff for staff departments with the word and it's open for any ideas for the draft wording. Piecemeal from multiple others that I've seen, and what may work with that.
Thank you. I think there's a discussion that we had. I'm not sure we're going to get where we need to get tonight. I don't think anyway with wording. I think as much as those are there, I wanted to take some time and review others. And I also think making sure, I know when I sat through Roma with Jesse Mente, and I remember he actually swore, but he was a very, very powerful speaker talking about land acknowledgements, and he's both. He's indigenous, and I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but he spoke to how it's something that, you know, we do to feel we're doing our part, and if that's what we feel we need to do to get where we need to go, that he supports it, and the Indigenous community supports it. But his comment into what you just said, the very least that we can do, I won't say it the way that he said, but is to say their names correctly. That's the very least. So I think, you know, from my perspective, I, you know, love to talk to the different groups that we're actually talking about, make sure that they understand what we're doing, hear what they have to say. And I'd like to take the time to do that, myself, and to make sure that I actually get it right, because I think most of the time it's probably going to be me that's saying those words, and I think I don't want to stumble through them. I want to be very comfortable. I want to have respect and the due course that it deserves. So we can have a discussion. I think my wish is that we just stay and bring it back in the new year for more some discussion. I appreciate that it's on there and want to move forward with it, but just think still have some work to do myself now that I have this in front. I don't know what I'm going to get right. So, anyone? So, Chris, did you want to say anything?
No, I mean, yeah. To your point, I mean, we don't want to do anything that's going to be, you know, we want to. I think we all. Well, I shouldn't say we all. I know I would like to make sure we have an acknowledgement there. I also don't want to insult anybody, and I do think I will struggle through those names. But to your point, it's mostly going to be you saying them. So I'm just kidding. But I do think it's an important topic that we have to think about a little longer and make sure that we have the right words there. And I'm okay with waiting for sure. You know.
So if I can, do I need to put a motion forward, or if I just don't bring it forward?
You just don't bring it forward.
Then we're good. So can we see this again in another?
Through the chair, we can bring it forward, depending on how our January meeting looks. It looks like it's gonna be a lot of our budget, so I'll look at our agenda planning accordingly and see where.
This is the meeting one already, and yeah, we're trying to accomplish a lot, and I think I want to give this its due course.
In through the chair, I have reached out to some of the communities, asking for clarification to confirm the information is accurate. Yeah. And still need to hear back from them, so we have different contacts.
Okay. Yeah, and this is what I was just going to say, is maybe we can share some of those. I did have one question, and just maybe so that Schedule A has 2 number 2s. No, we're not going to discuss it. And we're going to declare it. But Schedule A bylaw 2023, the revised shows 2 number 2s. Or is it going to be like a 1A? So I'm on page 126 and 149.
Oh, through the chair, that's with track changes. Everything would shift.
And it just shift down.
Correct.
So then 3 would be approval again.
Sure. Yeah, everything would just shift.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just didn't want that. Yeah, okay. Simple. Yeah. Okay. So next meeting or some point in the future. Closed road allowance then for request for closed road allowance request 95 for the road. It's not quite what I see it as. It's just a housekeeping matter, but yes.
Yes, so through the chair, to entitle the next meeting issue, but really that appears all indications are back in the mid-80s. The road allowance was stopped up and closed up, and the final portion of the advance of the portion of that road allowance that sort of intersects the at that time Pines, Township, Leonardsburg, and Sylvan Township. Wasn't completed in these transfers, so we're looking at, looking to have that cleaned up, so it's not as straightforward as we originally anticipated. It will require some additional work by the home with respect to survey, et cetera, to get that in a stage ready for final transfer. But I think it doesn't change with respect to recommendation. It just needs to be cleaned up, and we just need a little bit longer to get bylaw.
Okay, and so we're gonna move the recommendation tonight, and then we won't see it in December again, is that what you're suggesting?
I'm comfortable to say, with the information you received today, we will not see it in December. Let's get bylaw. Okay, it will most likely, vote on maybe January, or February, it's hard to say.
Okay, so then just a point of clarity question then, so for the recommendation, this bylaw 84-20, that everything there is still accurate, that's not an issue, it's just clearing up property lines.
Through the chair, we haven't identified any issues with 84-20. When we go to prepare the future bylaw, it will be more detailed in the description, where we instructed the issue is the road allowance that was closed, that stop and closed, runs farther than we originally anticipated. It doesn't stop through, it continues work all the way to the far one. They are interested in that whole portion, that actually is the property line. So in order to have that surveyed properly, and only identify that area, we need to perform the survey of actually able as well.
Okay, so just so I'm correct then, or my brain is processing this then, so somebody to the north, they're gonna own a strip through somebody else's land? Or will it stop on their property?
Through the chair, the piece of unopened road land that's being proposed would be through the one individual property there.
So,
North end, we're not proposed to do anything with it, just making.
okay, good. All right, further, go ahead, just do the recommendation before we actually have discussion. So those are clarity questions. So recommendation reads, the committee recommends that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw and authorize the transfer of the closed road described in bylaw 84-20 to the property owner of 95 road. And then moved by Councilor Martel, seconded by Councilor Smell. Now, is there discussion on this? All right, see none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Good, good. Move on. Holy cow, it never ends. Canal Bank cleanup. Who's going to speak to Canal Bank cleanup?
To the chair, certainly, so we can just continue this, that was sanitation call associates on November 14th, so we'll look at the, we probably originally around the sign, and then, you know, the, civic, portion of the bank, and, at the time of the report, there were no, established benchmarks at the time, so it's not as easy to compare rate back to the 2000 report compared to today. But there was some good discussion with respect to one of them is to have that portion surveyed and sort of have certain things in there that could be measured sort of on the go forward. That's ready to start 6 months or a year, just to find gauge what there is for movement, if there is any movement. We certainly have asked for information call to prepare sort of a proposal with respect to this management plan being developed for that particular area. We're looking at in that area. We have an initial memo from Noah that we work through with the State Nation, but they're looking to sort of start the process for probably looking at around $8,500. So I think that's a reasonable, from the initial review, it's a reasonable starting point. And what we'll also do is the manager of projects and facility was talking to was awarded the tree removal at the water park, and they will actually be doing some tree removal in and around the sign in a sort of a horseshoe fashion. That should be completed within the next 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully. So that gives us at least that head start with respect to 2024 and advancing this project in some way, shape, or form. So,
thank you for that. I'm just going to again ask for just just a point of clarity. So the request from council was information on canal cleanup, and to get where we need to get for cleanup, we're going to complete the risk management study, and then out of that risk management study, we're going to get, like, we talked about a stability study and a risk management study for signage and stuff like that. Out of that is there going to be a maintenance component to that as well?
With respect to like sort of on maintenance or ongoing assessment with respect to the risk.
I don't know. I
or ongoing maintenance with respect to once we have an area cleaned up, maintain that area.
Yeah. So I think, from the direction standpoint, direction was that we wanted to clean up the area. Staff said we needed to get risk analysis first before we could do cleanup. Right. The direction was we want to move forward with cleanup. So this is going to get us a risk study, which is, I think, something that obviously we needed moving forward, but we still haven't, other than a U shape around the sign. Will we get a plan out of it that gives us an ongoing maintenance? Like, will there be a tree trimming schedule? Will there be, something that comes out of the study that doesn't allow it to get in the shape and in the position that it is now, and gives us the ability to continue moving down the direction that this group wants to go, where we bring it back to life instead of watching it get overrun.
So if there's slightly two different areas, but the risk management plan will help us manage the risk in certain areas, but will also certainly, as already indicated, we're going to do some of that cleanup around that reshape as a starting point with respect to ongoing maintenance. We understand that as part of it, we're going for and beyond that there is be a bigger emphasis in not having those trees growing up to the states that they I think we're and so we're taking it in an area that was originally populated what we'll call under control, and we will get that area in better control, but also if it's going to attract more residents, we want to make sure that we're adding a few other features just to make people aware.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one more, just hopefully to keep the conversation moving. The cleanup that's scheduled, the group that is doing the cleanup at the waterfront for the 2016 trees. Those trees, they're cleaning everything. Those 16.
Yes.
So one of the issues that I'll ask it. It's safe to assume that they'll do the cleanup of the trees that they fell around the cardinal sign as well. They won't just fell them and leave them. They'll actually take them and clean them up, and that area will be cleaned up. Or they're just going to fell trees?
No, they're not just going to. Maybe maybe a little bit of chipping with respect to that, just that's not on there, but not in files, so it will be cleaned up.
We're not gonna have branches, we're not gonna have logs.
That is not the intent, that would be that one.
Alright. So there is a recommendation here.
There is no recommendation.
Well, there is, sorry, I'm still.
It was just information.
Sorry. All right. Does anyone then, okay, so does anyone have questions or comments then on the information given this here? So all back to the last. John, no, why? Chris? No, Joe?
Through the chair, to the CEO, do we have a timeline on we put it into the budget? Do we have an actual timeline when they said they will get back to you by?
I anticipate that before the end of the year, we'll have a better estimate. And at least from the discussion on site, it's going to be, all indications are going to be a reasonable plan with respect to being able to assess in the future. It's probably going to need, some tweaks, but looking at it where the trees have grown, all of a sudden now you remove all that, and now you've got a steep edge. You probably should, from a risk perspective, at least indicate some warning signs or something that would indicate that you're on the edge. Right? It's just like it's like similar.
Yes. I had one more, and so, we discussed partnering with Snow Nation and potentially the United Counties. You know, it's Highway 2 and you know, Bridge Street, runoff that have a large impact on the stability of that area. Did we get anywhere in having United Counties pay for a portion of these studies?
I would say where we're focusing in on visually, which is the civic bank.
That's ours.
It is ours. If we're looking at, depending on what comes back with that safe side, if it's a reasonable approach, we may want to look at like surveying to do a little bit more of an assessment on that. And I think we're approaching doing that.
So this is the beginning.
This is really the process.
Okay, you good?
Sure.
Very good. Thank you. All right. And now on to unmetered residential customers assessment results. And you were here to speak for maybe more. All right, Eric, fire away.
Through the chair, environmental services subcontracting work for plumbing or assessments on consumers that are currently in the category rates in budget of 2023-11. The table below summarizes the conclusions that from the assessment. In total, we recommend that 7 properties remain on category A rates. 2 properties have water meter installed. 1 property refused to participate, and 1 consumer that was on category B rate did not return any phone calls. The estimated cost is high level, and it's only for plumbing only. It does not assume any kind of complications that could arise. It does not include drywall repairs or general contracting costs to return the properties to existing condition or even better. Nor does it include any issues that could rise with curb stops. I present 3 options. One option would be to leave category A and B rates the same, no policy changes against the bylaw required. Option 2, review category A and B rates in 2024, determine if the rate increase is appropriate. And third option, transferring those category A properties who actively refuse inspections to category B rates until such time as they permit inspection. Once re-inspected, depending on the results, back to category A rate or install a water meter. The category A rate is the same for those properties being too expensive or difficult to install a water meter. The main policy implication would be amended by law 2023-11 if, depending on the council's direction. And the financial considerations would be, there might be slight increases in revenue if category A rates are increased, or properties that are used are transferred to category B. There is also a possibility that revenue might slightly decrease for newly metered users whose consumption will be below average. And I do present for recommendations for the committee to consider.
Thank you, Eric. All right, I'm gonna not speak to this one. Does anyone want to start looking around? That's maybe.
I think the very recommendations are straight on the mark. That's the way I'm proceed with.
And I just want to ask Eric for clarity on that. The intent of that recommendation is to move all four of those forward, because to me, it's pick one of them, isn't it?
No, because they're all kind of intertwined.
They're all intertwined, so it's all four. Yes. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's good. Anyone else?
So through the chair, so I mean these estimated costs for these ones that we have prices for, I guess, you know, was, and I guess I'm trying to figure out the willingness. So they would like the changes done, or was that clear?
Sorry, I couldn't understand that last part.
Do they want meters?
A lot of them, a number of properties did say they would not want meters. I think their concern was having to do further renovations on it. And I have the concerns that they come up with household renovations that you know, could start out as a low price and end up costing thousands of dollars.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, so the willingness is because this cost we're seeing here is only the cost of basically putting the meter in and any piping that needs to get done, you know, on the immediate inside, if you will, to accomplish that. The rest of the putting everything back together and stuff is not on this, obviously, and they don't want to bear the cost at this point in time. Is kind of how I read that or heard that.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, anybody who wants on the metering is the question that I was going to have about anybody who does want on the metering then. So this cost that goes on there, it goes on against their account essentially, and it's paid back over time, or is this just something that that the water system just bears the cost of?
The inspections, the water system is paying for, and the install of the two properties would be the current water system.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's it. Thanks.
Further, anyone? No, I will weigh in. I think, you know, we put a capital levy on the entire users of the system to recognize the cost of what the Highway 2 project was going to be. I don't remember whether we did that, John, or whether that was the council before, last council, but it's been on there, and it recognizes that the users of the system are the ones that are supposed to pay equally and fairly, whether it's an increase in price or whether it's a decrease in price. At least it's fairly done for everyone to get connected to the system. So I think, in my eyes, if you can reasonably be connected to the system, you should be connected to the system. That way, everybody bears cost of the system. That's the spirit of the entire thing, right? So the act. So to me, the recommendation is perfect. If I wasn't sitting in the chair, I'd be happy with the recommendation as it's written. I think job well done. And I know sometimes
I'll move it, Mr. Mayor.
Sometimes the circumstances surrounding items like this can be difficult for folks that actively do them, and we certainly respect how difficult those discussions can be with next staff or, their diligence in doing it. So, well done. So it has been moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smale. Further discussion? Hearing seeing none, then I'll call the question then. Did I read it? I don't know. Better read it. It has been moved and seconded, but I will read it just so that everyone is clear. The committee recommends the council direct staff to 1. Transfer properties to who actively refuse to participate in inspections to category B rates until such time as they permitted an inspection. Once inspected, either transfer back to category A rates or install a water meter, depending upon the findings. 2. Properties that require excessive renovations or relocation of plumbing remain at category A rates. 3. Install water meters at locations deemed not to be too expensive or too difficult to install and fund this under the Cardinal water system. And 4 is review category A and B rates 2021. So it's already been moved by Councillor Ward. It's been seconded by Councillor Smale. And if there's no further questions or comments, then I will call the question. All in favor? It's unanimous for sure. Okay. Well, we got through it. Number 9, councillor inquiries and notice of motion. Does anyone have an inquiry or notice of motion?
All right, through Mr. Mayor, I attended a evening open air evening market. Flowers and free skin are at the corner of Jordan and Green. Spent all night the farm. It was such a good one. No church, Santa was there, fire and all kinds of animals. Kids were really well. It was well done. It's great to see you. We're all businesses. Like I said, it's on the box or it's actual. Second thing, I just this Zoom thing is really tough. We are redoing our hall. Is there any possible way that we can improve on this system? The microphones are Thank you. All right, so further inquiries. Nothing up there. So, all right, so on to Mayor's report, which I will keep extremely brief. And this Mayor's report will be very simple to thank. I don't think we'll see everyone at full council again. I think we always see all of the staff at full council, right? And last few we haven't. So I will say, while everyone is here, thank you for the hard work that you all do. Again, at times we ask difficult questions, and it may not seem like we're on the same team. We are on the same team. We do appreciate the hard work of people. So thank you for another fantastic year. To our very valuable committee members who sit through 3.5-hour meetings with us. Karen, thank you for your first year in committee here. You're certainly growing into the role, and just like we're growing into our and we're very, very happy to have you on board and work forward to your continued participation, John. Even not quite as talkative as you are on council, but your expertise and your advice to this group is certainly why we wanted you here, and we're very appreciative to have you here. And we'll say thank you for putting in the first year with us. As difficult as the times it may have been for you over there. I do appreciate the work that you do. So thank you for that.
Council representative. Third, you go. Thank you for all that mistakes. So, very good. You make a mistake. You didn't do nothing.
Good. Good. Thank you. Thank you for that. I actually appreciate that. I will say one other thing, and I think I'm allowed to say this. The Steve, AO, and the CBC and myself and CBO, I think was there as well. We met the representatives from HFI to discuss HFI's future plans and their continued commitment to our township. It was a fantastic visit. And I look forward to continuing our work with them. It was great to sit with President Rena and Todd again, and actually see the work that gets done. And I will say we posted a couple of videos of being able to throw a couple of the products that they make. And I've never seen Wendy could be a baseball pitcher. She certainly threw that fast. So it was really fun. HFI was a fun tour. If you ever get the opportunity to go out and do the tour, take it and go. Were there any questions? There's nobody online with us anymore. There's nobody in the gallery. There were no questions provided ahead. So we had no question period. Then we have no closed session. And then that means that I just need adjournment, which is moved by Councillor Smale and seconded by Councillor Martel. All in favor? We're adjourned. You do that. He can run the plans. That's